Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, antitheism, antireligionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheists can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudo-history, pseudo-morality, things that are found in religion.
Hello.
We're going to talk about, in a sense, Sami Shamanism, but it's not going to be limited to that in any kind of way, just so people know. If you want this video to be like only about Sami Shamanism, yeah, you might as well stop watching because it's going to be that's like, to me, the overarching like thing that it has related. And there's all this other stuff inside that you need to know that really is not directly, I guess, connected to Sami Shamanism.
Yeah, people should know that we jump all over the place by now.
Right, we do that kind of anyways in our videos, and also it's going to be a little political and stuff because it just is, and about human rights, and I think anarchism and people's right to own their own land, and and sovereignty, crazy shit like that.
Yeah, crazy shit like that.
So,
yeah.
So the first thing I want to do is that whenever people mention Sami, let me just explain that the whole bunch of stuff is hard to understand. So people have all kinds of varied views if they only, in a sense, understood one part.
Right.
So it's very complicated. That's why most of this video I really want to give to that and not the shamanism per se. In other words, like before, sometimes, or I would normally want to really explain what their shamanism is all about. I don't really do that.
Mm-hmm.
I have a blog that explains more stuff, but this is going to hit some of that stuff. But it's more about what happened to them because of their religion. In this sense.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different. That's their experience, and I think it should be talked about
For sure.
So
yeah.
Okay, so everybody says that they're indigenous. Now, just so you understand, the Sami language is not, in a sense, indigenous. The Sami people are. Just
okay,
so you can understand this. So, in a sense, because the long before, so probably the first DNA, in a sense, to get up there into the Sami area, to me, is somewhere around probably 10,000 to 8,000, somewhere in there, and it's probably, to me, related to the Magdalenian DNA.
Okay.
And the DNA almost that comes in a sense from Spain all the way up.
Okay.
That's also why there's a connection between Sami and Berbers. Just so people understand. There's also, just to help people understand. Now, those people would have had shamanism, which we already talked about when we talked about the beginning of shamanism being, in a sense, the Gravettians, or however the hell you pronounce that name. But those people, the first, in a sense, like the first woman who was buried, that is assumed to be a shaman. Okay, she's a Gravettian, but she's also U5. Okay,
DNA strand.
Or DNA strand. I'm trying to show this, and I already explained this before about how you can see shamanism passes through out of the crazy DNA strand. Meaning, really, that the people that just kept living and had similar religion.
Right.
So, yeah, crazy shit I know I talk about. But I want to say it's all very complicated, so I wanted to break this down. That would have been indigenous. That was the first people, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the Sami still have DNA in the sense related to that. There was a second one. So in a sense, that was like I. Then another one comes up later, like 5,000 to 7,000, I don't know exactly, comes up later, boom, that's like I1.
Okay.
So now, once again, that's the second, but they're in a sense same family, so it's not exactly like, you know what I'm saying? But they kind of did overpopulate those older DNAs.
Okay.
Just saying. So it just goes back to my point. I'm just saying when people say indigenous, I'm just explaining.
Right.
So you grasp.
It's not just like a thing. It's like
so there's no one there, and then the related family comes up in a sense and recolonizes where the other one, okay? In a sense.
Right. Okay.
Then the Eastern hunter-gatherers that come from the ancient North Eurasians from Lake Balka or Lake Baikal, maybe that's once again, people don't ever watch my show to try to get correct pronunciations of like historical shit.
Look up the pronunciations yourself.
Yeah, that's understanding like how it's all working and like laying out in the big picture. I do, but the names and stuff. Yeah, we already know that's not someplace I'm an expert or even close to anything. But anyway, so the people from Lake Balka become the ancient North Eurasians. Then they start moving. I already told you they go down to the Middle East also. But we're not going to deal with that right now. We're just dealing with, in a sense, the people that come up and boom, they go to Europe, right, and become all these, first it's the Eastern, hunter-gatherers, and those people then become like the Yama and whatever, and then Indo-European languages. And so a lot of people, I agree, the Eastern hunter-gatherers, those people, okay, those Siberians, related DNA, who had light skin and light hair, by the way, also, and spread those genes all over. That's why all these white peoples, including probably you and me. So anyways, but the Eastern hunter-gatherers, they go into Finno-Scandinavia and probably Sami. Okay, so now you have two DNA, but they're still alive today. Do you understand this?
Right.
So for sure, there absolutely is DNA that was, in a sense, the original people. Then there is DNA from this second wave, but they also practice, to me, shamanism, or certainly shamanistic paganism. I guess is probably a better, because they had, I think, gods and stuff, possibly.
Okay.
So these people, when they go up, to me, that's probably when shamanism up there gets maybe the first type of spirits that are getting closer to gods, or may have even been at that point gods, to me. But that still isn't the people that come from China up to Siberia and then all the way over in DNA, right?
Mm-hmm.
NC1, I think, is what actually becomes most of Sami, but also I think N1, maybe I'm not sure. But anyways, they get N for sure, right? So nDNA is another, in a sense, haplogroup, or like, ethnic group, you can consider it, whatever. Okay. So it comes from China and goes all the way over and gets into Sami like 1,500, or something, or maybe even 2,000 years ago, or maybe to 4,000. Let's just say that the highest it could be. It's probably under 4,000. But so that is what makes Sami, in a sense.
Okay.
All these people. Now, there's another thing people, because I had this one guy in me, I felt like he was saying that I was wrong, that more of the DNA comes from, the Western hunter-gatherers, which is the Magdalenians, in a sense, culture.
Okay.
Western hunter-gatherers is just calling this, loose group, but it's probably more accurate Magdalenian. At the most, maybe even Epigravitan. So Gravitans had I. I, by the way, is one of the things. So I'll read you the Sami DNA real quick.
Okay.
So Sami, in a sense, what they call Y DNA, or people would say, typical male. Anyways, DNA is, in a sense, they had three main, and you consider male DNA. So they had N1C, I1, and R1A. So they also sometimes have R1B. But anyways, R1A is more dominant.
Okay.
So those, as you see, they're three different things, and they're actually three different, in a sense, ethnic groups, just so you understand. So when people think of Sami as one ethnic group, if you just look at the DNA, that's not right.
Right.
Then you also look to understand that there's also, in a sense, what they consider female DNA, or mtDNA. And the Sami only have two variants, which is V and U5. Remember we talked about the first shaman who was buried had U5. So they have the female DNA from even the first shaman, who actually went down and became Magdalenian. And we know that they went to Spain because they have haplogroup V. And haplogroup V, in a sense, originated in Southern Europe about 14,000 years ago in the area of which is called Iberia Refuge. Iberia is, in a sense, is Spain and Portugal, that whole, below France,
Okay.
So, and that DNA V, right, it also is seen going over into, I can't remember how to pronounce the word, Ibermorasian. Anyways, it's North Africa. So, yeah, once again, name.
I know where that is then. But, yeah.
Well, I meant culture. It's a time frame. It's about 14,000 years ago. Okay. So so V goes from Spain. I'm just helping you grasp something. Goes from Spain down into North Africa, because there's people before that have said Africans are all the way in Sami because they have similar DNA, and I'm explaining why that's nonsense. V went two different ways. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
One went to Africa, down from Spain, right? Went down to North Africa. The other one goes all the way north. It's crazy, right? All the way north up to as far as you can go in Europe into Sami, since, or Sapmi land,
And that's why you find DNA that matches.
Correct. See what I'm saying? You have to, to me, you have to grasp this, that just because someone shared doesn't mean it's like two family members went like this.
Right.
Farthest they could practically go from each other. You know what I'm saying? One left Europe and the other one went to the farthest part of Europe before leaving the water. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Which is just, it's odd, but that's what happened. And then it pretty much didn't do a lot of any, much else. It's not, V is not like all over the place. So it's compared to some DNAs. But anyways, so that shows that it's somebody in their relative line came from probably Spain and went all the way up. Or, and this, I'm not saying that they did this, of course, once again, DNA, I know I simplified, they were trying to simplify things. I'm not saying it happened like in one day, because I know the archaeologists didn't like that I didn't say, what I didn't say, thousands of years later, which is
right.
Okay, yeah. So maybe in this circumstance, thousands of years later, they leave Spain and end up in Sapmi, because I don't think they get to Sapmi until like 10 to 8,000 or whatever.
Right.
No. When does V get there? Maybe it's 8,000 to 7,000. I like my brain. But anyways, so it's a long time. Obviously, if it starts 14,000 in Spain, but it's not that, say, you left or something, you didn't just drive all the way up.
Right. It's not me leaving and me coming back. It's
No, it's probably you in a little ways and died, and your son, your daughter,
Right.
everybody just kept, whatever.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Just trying to help people understand this. So that may also, I don't know, may have some connection with shamanism. I'm just saying I know U5 does.
Okay.
So it just helps to understand that, I think, and to also understand, like I said, there's a bunch of DNA stuff, which I showed you how it's kind of complicated.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps you understand that the Sami are not like one people. They're like a confederacy family of different genetics that are doing the similar thing. They're all, in a sense, ending up with reindeer herding, in a sense, and they have shared cultures. But that's also could be why, or I don't know, so I don't want to claim how their language broke up. But at one point, it was probably just one, and then it broke up into things. I don't know exactly how Sami broke down, but there's, I think, like 3 of them that are extinct or something, and there now still is, I think, like 6 or 7 or something.
Okay.
Different languages. Just so I'm saying, even that is, there's no one Sami language. So it's really easy, especially for Europeans. And this is actually other Europeans, but
Right.
to say I don't need to learn all that. Who cares?
No, we'll just lump all these people in one group and then call them indigenous or Sami or what have you, and then we don't
You
have
see
to
what
learn
I'm saying?
about
But now, so anyone who tries to act like it's simple, I just explained to you. Does that sound? And that's actually a little more complicated, but I tried to condense it. So,
Right.
so now we're going to watch the video. Or whatever. So now you're going to get. I wanted you to have some context that when they say these things, that it's not really that simple.
Fair.
But by the way, I'm not saying I don't support Sami. They definitely have their rights. You have their land. I just wanted to explain like who they are, though. It's not a monolith. It's more. So don't. In other words, like I say, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying who's is not part of this indigenous community.
Right.
I'm just referencing that it's more complicated than people think.
For sure.
They decide who is and who's not indigenous in their community, not me.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair. Okay. So we've got this first video is from about 10 seconds to it's about 3 minutes.
In the frozen far north of Europe, beneath the northern lights, lies a land of snow, endless tundra, and dense forests, where ancient languages and songs echo on the frigid air, where majestic reindeer roam majestically. Anyway, this is Sápmi, home of the Sami people, the indigenous people of northern Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia's Kola Peninsula. Located mostly north of the Arctic Circle, in Sápmi, the sun disappears for months in the winter and may never set in the summer. This is what midnight looks like in summer. For thousands of years, the Sami have not only survived, but thrived in this land of negative 30 degrees Celsius winters and midsummer snows. But who are the Sami? What is their story? And wizards. Can they help you find your socks? Well, let's find out. You might have heard of Lapland before, where Santa lives. Laps used to be the name for the Sami people, but since Lap is an insult, it means people who wear rags. Sami don't exactly like it. They prefer Sami and Sápmi instead. Sápmi just
Pause
means
for a second.
Sami means people.
There we go.
And I didn't make this distinction, obviously, because the video does. But so don't call them Laplanders and don't call that Lapland. Since it absolutely is a derogatory statement.
Right.
So, yeah. Because you'll even see some books and stuff still, and they said there's signs that still say it. And there's still a lot of bigotry. In fact, even I watched a video, and they said this guy who deserted, he's on the Russian side, and he deserted in war. And just interesting that I'd heard this. And they asked him, like, how he felt or whatever. And he said, I was picked on. They called me a reindeer herder. And they didn't go on and on about him, whatever. But So he felt like the other Russian troops were treating him like shit. And so he fucking said, I'm out of here. I'm not fighting for this.
Right.
You guys are treating me like racist and shit. I'm not, fuck you. So anyways, I just wanted to say that, which I thought was interesting. So he didn't say, but the fact they say reindeer herder, that's a term for the Sami. So,
okay.
And they can, the reason, so when they say it, what they really mean is you're dirty. I know it's weird to us, but it means that you're a wild person, that you live with animals. I'm not, I don't, by the way, so Damien is not saying this. Yeah,
this is why it's used derogatorily, and yeah,
people. That's why I'm just saying, because like say Cory thinks reindeer herder, you know, what does that mean?
Right.
Well,
yeah,
they mean it derogatory. It's like saying camel jockey or something for someone, you know, in the Middle East or whatever. I've heard you know bigots say shit like that.
Yeah, I've heard.
I'm just saying, yeah, even though they actually do, in a sense, reindeer herding. They don't mean it in a good way. They mean, oh, you are those scumbags.
Right.
Thing. So I'm just saying there's a lot of which we don't know about. And, you know.
That's like when we were talking about the Mesopotamia and like they assigned certain animal characteristics to the people who lived in the mountains or what have you.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Boar-faced.
They're just being racist, right?
Exactly. So I'm just explaining that. So people in the fact, I thought it was shocking, or not. I mean, it shouldn't be, but that they were doing that to someone fighting with them,
right?
But you know, bigotry is fucking bigotry. Anyways, I just wanted to explain that. So go ahead. So it's a lot bigger deal than just like, oh well, just don't use that word or something. No, it's a big deal. It's really fucking racist.
Yeah.
Of the land, Sapmi is divided by the borders of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia. It's about 400,000 square kilometers, making Sapmi larger than places like Germany and Japan. And today there are about 100,000 Sami people and 9 different Sami languages. But 11,000 years ago, this entire area lay beneath a thick layer of ice. As the last ice age ended, groups of European hunter-gatherers followed the retreating ice into Fennoscandia, which is just a fancy name for this area. They had reached as far north as Fenmark by 10,000 BC. From rock art dating as far back as 4,200 BCE, we can see people doing things.
That rock art is probably not related to those other people. This rock art would probably be related to the Eastern hunter-gatherers, I would assume. Because it's basically 6,200 years ago. It's about 7,000, or about 8,000 is when they start coming over near that area. So to me, and they are for sure reindeer herders. Those other people were like hunters. Probably remember I said they're a little different than these people are. Anyways, and if they bring in a sense Siberian shamanism also, unlike the other people that would have had European shamanism. Just try and help people understand that I don't even think there's the same of those things.
Right. Okay.
Things that are part of traditional Sami culture. They hunted reindeer, bears, and fish. This chap is skiing. This person has found 2 giant avocados.
He didn't stop on it, but go back. There's a shows an animal being hit in the head with a reindeer thing. Watch. You go to that picture. Yeah, play it. No, not that. Yeah.
Reindeer,
right
bears, and fish.
Right there. See
it?
Oh,
yeah. Down in the bottom there.
This thing, yeah. So that, if anyone goes and looks up Eastern hunter-gatherers on Wikipedia, it'll show a little tool that they actually found in Russia that looks like looks like a bigger one, but it's like a smaller, like hatchet size club that looks like on it, just like that, like an animal's head pointing out, and they think that they did just that, smashed him right in the nose.
Okay.
So I guess that, I don't know what that does, but maybe it dazes them or something. I don't know. Anyways, but I'm just wanting to show you that's another reason why, if you look at what this tool is, and you look at that, they actually found, and more than just one, by the way, but I just wanted to say the picture shows just one. In the picture for the Eastern hunter-gatherers, it shows a picture of this tool. So
Okay.
I was just, and I found several of them. So they know that's connected to that. So I'm just saying, even if maybe, and I'm not saying 100% that whoever drew this drew every single picture. I don't know about these.
Right.
I'm not making that claim. I'm not that proficient on. I'm just trying to show you that the cultural connection, I am sure, especially that thing right there, 100% sure it is related to the Eastern hunter-gatherers and not the Western hunter-gatherers or the Magellanians. Related DNA in those people. Just saying. So, yeah. So I was just trying to show you that thing. If you go look it up, you'll see it and go, oh, okay. This is well known, is all I'm saying. Maybe not to everybody, but to, if you research it.
People who look, into this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
This chap is skiing. This person has found 2 giant avocados. And this moose is yeah. These people were the ancestors of the Sami. Later on, some Siberian immigrants joined them. Then people speaking Finno-Ugric languages brought the ancestor of the Sami languages with them into Sapmi about 3,000 years ago. This mixture gave the Sami a very different origin than their farming Indo-European language-speaking Scandinavian neighbors.
The Lapps get everything they need from the reindeer. Their food, their clothing, their shelter.
One Sami creation myth.
Pause for a second. Do you see how that old video called them the Lapps?
Yeah.
It's derogatory. I'm just saying that it was just normalized. Like, anyways, we'll watch. Just this
white reindeer sacrificing itself to create the world. The reindeer's veins became the rivers, its fur became the forests, its stomach became the oceans, and its horns became the mountains. The reindeer made up the Sami world. The Sami were nomadic hunter-gatherers that tracked reindeer herds on their seasonal migrations over hundreds of kilometers of tundra, snowscapes, fjords, mountains, and forests as the reindeer searched for grazing grounds and lichen, which is their favorite food. As the wild reindeer stopped to graze, the Sami would set up camp and could do some fishing, gathering plants, and hunt some other animals like bears, seals, and mooses, or elk, depending on where you're from. I know it's moose, but mooses is more fun to say. When the reindeer moved on, the Sami packed everything up and moved along with them. Ancient Sapmi ran on reindeer fuel.
Pause for a second. Do you see how on that tundra and those kind of tools they have, actually, whether it's summer or it's winter, those skeds work the same.
Right.
I'm just trying to show you that their movement. That's why people don't grasp how people went thousands of miles. Like from Asia all the way over to Europe and across the north. This may be why.
Yeah. That is actually the end of our first video section there. So
I was just making the point that people don't realize that the way that their technology actually didn't just work in one area like snow.
Right.
Because I wouldn't have thought, wow, they work that well on grass.
But they do. But they do. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, it goes back to when people say hunter-gatherers are not like, advanced or culture. I don't know. They got shit that can go in snow and fucking grass. Like, wow.
It's good enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Shit. They invented skiing and snowshoes. Yeah, they sound totally like not on it.
They know what's up, eh?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the start of who are the Sami. So, yeah, that's interesting stuff. I didn't know any of this before.
There's more in the video though. I wanted you to do three parts in that first video.
Yeah. Well, it looks like do you want me to? I guess.
I want you to do it.
Looks like there's. Yeah, it looks like there's 4 here actually. In the first
well,
video.
I don't.
Yeah. So
I did this a few days ago.
Yeah, for sure. You sent it to me a few days ago, so
right.
Yeah. Okay, so then we'll do from 536 to 849. I'm not sharing that, am I?
No.
Okay. I'll try to restart it. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Right on.
This should help.
Constant movement meant that the Sami traveled light, carrying only essential items. Their traditional portable shelters, reindeer skin lavu, not only trapped heat, but could also be set up and taken down in a flash, then carried on a person's back or tossed on the back of a reindeer sled. The Sami also glided across the frozen white
Pause for 1
snowscapes.
second.
Not me.
Did you see that boat also floats? They also make sheds that both can be in the water, be on the land and the snow. It's like, anyways, I just wanted to go back to this. When people say, "Oh, they're not advanced, they're hunter gatherers,"
Right.
like the hunter gatherers are badass some bitches sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. They had to be pretty creative.
Yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
Amazing speeds using their skis. This let them hunt over huge distances and push animals into traps. The Sami have been skiing for well over 5,000 years and were some of the world's first skiers, probably teaching it to the Scandinavians. They were such famed skiers that the Hereford Mappamundi from 1300 CE shows us one of the first images of the Sami from Europe, and it shows them on skis. This map is also just hilarious. Like, what is this? Seriously, go have a browse. The link is in the description. Attached to their skis were special Sami boots called nutikas, or something that sounds similar to that I can't say properly. These soft reindeer hide boots were stuffed with straw to keep feet warm in bitter sub-zero temperatures. And those little curved toes right at the end there, they're for slipping under ski straps so they don't slip off your feet. During the first expedition to cross the frozen interior of Greenland in 1888, the Norwegian team had to bring 2 Sami along with them for their skiing skills and expertise in traveling across such a frozen environment, and the expedition used Sami boots. The Sami religion revolved around animism. Sami animism accepted that everything, plants, rocks, trees, animals, they all had their own spirits, lives, and languages. Nature was alive and sacred. It was a giant web where everyone had a particular role and was interconnected. This gave the Sami a deep connection to the land because they considered themselves to be a part of it. A lone Sami walking in a dense, dark forest under the flickering northern lights knew they were never truly alone. The trees, the animals, the rocks, the rivers were aware. They could feel, they could be offended, and they must always be honored with proper respect. Natural sites like mountains, springs, oddly shaped trees, and boulders were worshipped. These were called Sidi. Sami made sacrifices and performed rituals at Sidi to show how grateful they were for everything that they had received. This worldview dictated that animals
Pause
should
for a
be
second.
hunted.
And how they would worship it, by the way, is not sit there and pray to it, just so people understand. They would take reindeer fat, which was considered a important thing to live, because there's not that many sources of fat out there, and you can actually die even if you eat enough meat. If you have no fat, it can really hurt you.
Yep.
Anyways, or maybe if you didn't die, just certainly be not.
You can get real,
So, anyways,
real weak and sick. Yeah.
So what they do is they would take fat and smear it on the rock, and that was because this goes back to like the belief that a lot of people have that like even down to the Jesus concept. Something has to be sacrificed,
right,
for everything to be okay. In other words, it's almost like saying no one deserves a free ride. So whenever they go by an area and they're going to hunt, they have to honor everything. Otherwise, they're just taking as if they own it, which they don't think they do. And that's also, by the way, just so people understand, that made it very easy to have their land stolen because they didn't see it as their land.
Yeah.
But that actually doesn't mean you can just go and park yourself on top of their house and call it yours.
Dictate, yeah. This is mine because you don't own it.
Right? Because and the biggest point is that they don't believe they own things.
Right.
So if you don't really own things like the land, which I like, I kind of relate to that as an anarchist.
Yeah, I like that.
We're on the same page, I think.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Where forests should not be chopped down, and the Sami should leave no trace on the environment. Their mindset was not to only think of themselves, but the next 2 3, or 4 generations. The Sami also had a special relationship with the sun, which is understandable since it disappeared for months at a time in the polar night winters and then never set in the midnight sun summers. So Beve, goddess of the sun, was one of their most beloved gods. Today, many Sami still refer to themselves as children of the sun. The Sami divided their universe into 3 separate worlds. The upper world was the warm, sunny world of the gods. The middle world is the home of humans and animals. And the third world is the deep, watery underworld associated with death and others.
One of the things that came up to me was, where was it? Oh yeah, how they thought 2 or 3 they thought about 2 or 3 or 4 generations ahead. Like it seems like, I don't know, pretty thoughtful, pretty good. Maybe we could take notes.
Right. Once again, are they civilized? You know what I'm saying? This goes. I mean, so people act like hunter-gatherers couldn't be civilized when you're think about others and not just yourself. But I think it's really hard for people in the sense of westernized culture, which is very individualistic culture.
Right.
Which is why capitalism can thrive, because it's very individualistic.
Yeah. It depends on your alienation, right?
So or right politics to me in general, because it's very individualistic, you know.
Yeah.
Even when they say, "Oh, it's my land," you know, I'm American, they really see themselves though as the individual, because as soon as the big government were to come and tell them to do something, well, they would immediately say that or do say, "You can take the gun away from my dead hand." So right. You could see that. Oh, but I thought you were totally for America, right? Anyway,
you should be able to be willing to sacrifice your land for the greater good of the country, right? If you're actually
right, because aren't you worshiping America? Otherwise, what is America to them?
Yeah, that's right.
But an individualistic, shithole, they can just freaking, be abusive in. It's disgusting.
Yeah, they only love America because they get to be on top.
Right, exactly. But anyways, I agree. I like that point too, and that's what I told you before. The more I learned about cultures that are not only not Western, but ones that people think maybe even today are still primitive.
Mm-hmm.
Are they really primitive?
Yeah.
Or is that just your fucking bigotry that you think that they're primitive?
Yeah. Because the way I define civilized and primitive
is thinking about 3 generations, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's why I told you that when people say civilized or whatever, I always think, well, you're not talking about places like America or something,
right? Yeah.
Shit, places still not civilized,
where we let people starve, we let people live on the street with no houses.
Yeah, it's already done for me. Any place that does that, you're not civilized, because it is another thing too. A lot of people go up to the Sami and don't even know them. They just welcome you in their house, start feeding you, let you sleep for the night. You know why? Because they're not individualistic.
Yeah.
And but this is as an anarchist, I'm sure you might probably agree with this me that I really don't think people are individualistic. I think that's like a sickness that culture has taught us to.
Right. Yeah.
Like a propaganda. I mean,
we are social creatures, actually. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. If it wasn't, then why does the right fight so hard to keep books out? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. If we were naturally, you just had to let us feel we're naturally individualistic, they wouldn't fucking cram it, force it, demand it. I mean, anyways. I'm sorry. Don't need to rant on that. You're right. Sami stuff, but hey, I do think it's important also to relate to the Samis that look at a culture that's not individualistic. Look at how they behave. Do we not think that we can't learn some of that?
Yeah, for sure. So now we've got another section of the video. This one looks quite long, so I imagine we'll interrupt it many times.
It's possible. Well, that's the whole reason we do videos anyways. Is not otherwise you just go watch the other video.
That's right. Exactly.
The whole point is the commentary to me that we give to sometimes. Well, I feel it helps because some of the stuff they go over, like when I explain the DNA, I think I did a better job than the person that made that video.
Mm-hmm.
They made it kind of confusing to me. like, because that rock art, like I said, is not related to the other ones. So
Right.
why did you say that? Because you just then you say, and then after the rock art, then people came from Siberia. No, they're the ones that did that rock art. So, but like I said, that's why I wanted to try to. And you go to the blog that's going to be attached to this, people. There's links and way more information even than we're explaining.
Right. There we go.
For humans that could travel between the three worlds. They were the shamans, known as Noide. Male or female Noide acted as the priests and doctors of the Sami. They performed all the important rituals and sacrifices. These Noide used deep meditation and trances to travel between the worlds. The Noide fell into a trance.
Noide is the name of a shaman, in a sense, in the Sami culture. They don't call it a shaman. Just so you'll know the word shaman actually it only is Tuscan language. So everyone else that we call shamans is because we're saying it's like this.
Right.
So people grasp that there actually is someone who invented the word and everyone else doesn't use it. Even though
yeah, it would be pretty weird actually if every culture called their shamans, right?
that would be weird.
That would be very strange.
But anyways, just grasping you're probably going to talk a lot about the Noide, but everyone needs to understand that it's not something different. It's a shaman. So they just don't use that word.
It's their spiritual sort of person.
It's a shaman, but I'm just saying it's not. I just meant is that just trying to help you understand that they don't call it that, and it's not like they have to because it's their freaking word.
They get to call it whatever they want. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's part of that non-colonial thing.
Yeah.
It's using drums, chanting, and Amanita muscaria mushrooms. In their trances, Noide spoke with spirits or animals and asked for their help. They could possess animals like bears and reindeer, and they could predict weather and animal migrations, and they could help people find lost reindeer or objects. I can't find my socks anywhere. Do you know where they could be? Your dog ate them. It was your dog. He ate them. I knew it. The greatest tool of the Noide.
Now, that's some part of the video I really don't like because you're literally making fun of the thing. There's a difference why sometimes I don't like about atheists. Just real quick rant about this. We're talking about religion, and I'm an anti-religionist. I think it's okay for me to say that it is not accurate that someone could foretell the future, could know the reindeer patterns other than some physical observance, not some magical spiritual ancestor help. I don't believe in that. That doesn't mean I think it's okay to make fun of them and belittle them, especially when it's a cultural thing, and even more especially when they've already been victimized as a culture, especially about their religion being, demonic and satanic. Then I think it's like what someone said before, I can't remember, but something like, and I kind of agree, is that he's saying that when it's the dominant thing, like the billionaire, right? The dominant top, you make fun of them, you're actually not doing anything bad because you're attacking the institution. But when you attack a trans person, someone who's in a sense, the society's already, in a sense, trying to subjugate, you're not some no big deal. You're actually being abusive. That's what I'm saying. That similar thing is how I feel, just me personally, maybe, but I don't like when atheists pick on people culturally.
Yep. No, I think you're dead right there. Like you say, like the Christianity, it dominates the culture. It's like the thing that says like it gets to rule over us and dictate how we live. Meanwhile, someone who might practice a marginalized religion in Canada, the US, like Hinduism, like I'm not going to, I might even avoid critiquing them in Canada because they're a marginalized group and they're probably not getting any kind of benefits, and they certainly aren't dominating me in any way.
Well, in fact, if you look through all of my stuff, I don't do in any kind of a mean way against animists, totemists, shamanists.
Right.
it's really pagan and that I start.
Being a little
So
bit more
people know. I
critical.
mean, so I'm in a sense, even though I had never really thought about it, but Cory addressing that made me go, yeah, that's. I guess I agree with that without realizing. I just, yeah,
Yeah. No, and it is something because my partner is a non denominational kind of Christian, I guess.
Right.
So we do sometimes disagree because when I'm talking about critiquing religion, I'm talking about the Christianity that is sitting and dominating over our country, and that constantly force feeds me propaganda about it. Where I don't mean she can't believe what she wants, or like other people can't believe what they want. I mean, I don't want this group of people, institution, ruling over me.
Right. And I've said I totally agree with that. And like I said before, I'm also, even though I would be happy with all religion being seen as just mythology and false or legends or whatever.
Right.
Even if people want to still enjoy them, just not true. That's just not true to go kill people or hate trans people, or you get my point.
Yeah.
So that would be, I mean, if people still want to do it, I mean, people do sports. Like I said, you already know, I don't like sports. I wish sports would be gone.
Yeah.
Let's end that. So I'm just saying, and yet I don't demand or critique people just because they're into sports.
Right.
Unless I ask, do you like them? And I just say no.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyways, let's go back to things. So I just wanted to address that's something that this person did in this video that I felt I would not do, and I don't really like.
Right. It almost does feel like poking fun at the Sami people, right?
And since, like I said, I don't think that's the place you joke about that culture. Nope. Joking about the reindeer or whatever, fine. Joking about them, what they do.
No. Yeah. Cultural practice or what have you. Like, yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Yep.
Was the Sami drum. The repetitive beating of the drum, mimicking the thundering hooves of reindeer herds, helped pull the Noide from
pause for a second.
Into another.
Just for another point, as you're looking at these drums, this person in the middle was murdered in witch trials of 16. I don't remember.
Oh,
you're gonna read about it. This middle drum. I don't know about there too. Probably the same. A lot of Noedi were burned alive by Christians.
Oh, geez. Wow.
Yeah, Christians. Those great people, like you said. Why do we talk about the Christians? Well, let me tell you about the Christians. Here's an instance where they had the person drum you're looking at was murdered just because he did that drum and practiced his native religion.
Yeah.
Anyways, and it was even crazier. If you look at this drum, he's got crosses on there. They asked him, "Are you Christian?" He said yes, and they still killed him because he was Christian plus shaman. Right. Because he said it's my culture. Yeah. So I just going back to why Christians, I don't feel that much sympathy. Like I don't feel sympathy for Elon Musk. Oh, well,
Right. Yeah.
The reindeer skin drums were decorated with sacred images like reindeer, bears, the sun, and representations of the three worlds. Noide predicted the future by beating the sacred drums with an object on the skin and then interpreting where it landed. Yoiks also helped the Noide fall into a trance. A yoik is the traditional Sami form of song, although it's a lot more than a song. These powerful, rumbling chants held personal and spiritual significance to the yoiker. A yoik is usually performed by one person with no instruments except maybe a drum. Sometimes with words, usually without. Instead of trying to describe them, let's have a listen. People, places, animals, and even landscapes could be yoiked. But a yoik isn't about a person or place. It is the person or place in sound waves. It's more a portrait than a description, if that makes sense. Yoiks could preserve history, folklore, personalities, and even certain places for generations. And receiving their yoik was an important rite of passage for young Sami. During the Viking Age, Sami and their Norse neighbours interacted a lot. The Norse saw the Sami as expert hunters, incredible skiers, and powerful wizards. The elves, dwarves, trolls, and giants of Norse mythology may have grown out of the contact between the Norse and the Sami. The skiing, reindeer chasing master smith of Norse mythology, Wayland, was part Sami. In the legends, he forges these powerful magical rings, which may have influenced a certain Norse-obsessed Tolkien and his Lord of the Rings. The Norse believed the Sami Noide were so magically powerful, we actually have records of Norse sailors sometimes buying wind from the Sami. The Sami became invaluable to the Norse, Slavic, and Finnic traders pouring into Fennoscandia during the Viking Age, because they were one of the only sources of exotic Arctic goods like reindeer, walrus, beaver, otter, whale, and Arctic bird feathers, along with strong boats and winter clothing. Sure, the word for walrus in French, Spanish, Russian, and other European languages comes from the Sami word for walrus, morsa. Trade between the Sami and non-Sami was friendly and mutually beneficial, but this didn't last forever. Finnish people had been arriving in Finland for centuries, but around 1000 CE, they began to force the Sami further north, and Finnish took over Sami as the main language in Finland. Around the 13th century, Sweden started demanding tribute from the Sami. Later, the Norwegians and the Russians followed suit. At times, the Sami had to pay tribute to 3 states at the same time.
Jeez.
The Sami stood little
Pause that for a
chance against
second.
these empires.
Is that not some fucked up shit?
Yeah. Yeah, that's not cool. That's, I guess it's typical colonizer shit, but
Yeah, it is. But in it, like you said, this is, you didn't know that there was indigenous people in Europe who had been colonized. But I'm sure it doesn't surprise you that Europeans were colonizers in general.
yeah, that's right. And they demanded tribute, like every colonizer demands of every people that they dominate. It's not cool.
Their way of life was based around pooling resources for the community's survival, not waging war. We actually have no record of the Sami ever going to war. The rising nation-states in Fennoscandia soon realized how rich Sapmi was, with its open land, its furs, its fish, its minerals, and its timber. They scrambled to colonize this area for themselves. Now, whether Santa Claus and his elves took part in this colonial aggression is unknown, but I think he did. In the 1500s, the Swedish king, Gustav Vasa, declared the land of the Lapps belonged to God, to us, to the Swedish crown, and to no one else.
Pause for a second.
How did he decide that?
Is that not some fucked up shit?
I just get to declare things. This land belongs to me, not the people that live there.
Yeah. Well, it's manifest destiny. God did it. God knows. Yeah, once again, using their Christian religion to justify taking over indigenous people.
Yeah, that's right. Absurd.
Yeah.
In 1673, Sweden promised its subjects 15 years of freedom from taxes and military service if they colonized Lapland.
Pause that for a second. Is that not some fucked up shit?
Yeah.
Paying your citizens if you'll go and take over the native land.
Yeah, that's right. You don't have to pay taxes if you go and you fight and take over this land.
Exactly.
It's very, I mean, it reminds me of like the colonization of North America with the the free land kind of thing where like, oh, just go and pick a plot and you can have it.
Exactly.
What? No, that's not how any of this works.
Well, right. And so colonization is wrong, and it's happened all over. And it seems to follow a similar path.
Right. Yeah, that's right. and then they wonder, like people wonder why decolonization is such a major topic, right? Like,
Exactly.
of course, like it's like
Well,
the
and
dominance of people all over.
Well, and that's like I told you, isn't it important if you care about decolonization that you learn about more colonization in the world? So then you have more of a cultural sensitivity to understand. I mean, like I said, I feel like as an anarchist, I'm not attached to the United States, so I do have a responsibility to learn about my people, humanity, all of them,
for sure.
And so I think, and like I told you, just like you've learned something now, would you think of the North the same as you did before?
Nope. Nope, not even.
But I guess it really does help, because like decolonization is, I feel some part is learning other cultures
for sure,
and understanding how colonization has been a worldwide sickening process.
Yeah,
states and powerful things have been doing this kind of shit. Kings and it's So I'm against kings and states, as an anarchist. So
yep.
I feel that we could do a lot better than that. Seriously.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, go ahead.
With the Sami for wild reindeer and fishing waters. Seeing the wildlife as nothing more than commodities, the settlers took much more than they needed. Within centuries of European settlers pushing the Sami off their lands, the moose was on the brink of extinction, and in Sweden, beavers went extinct. They had to be reintroduced in the 1920s. During the 1600s to 1700s, reindeer populations plummeted as the empires demanded more and more hides from the Sami. The Sami saw reindeer extinction as inevitable unless something changed. So, Sami Sidas started to domesticate their own herds. This guaranteed a supply of reindeer. Skiing alongside their herds, they would protect them from hunters and predators.
So this shows, in a sense, that the Sami who cared about the natural environment didn't want to close in and the reindeer, that's not what they wanted to do because of like capitalist greed. It's more that the populations were dying off, and if we didn't do this, control this, and protect them, they're not going to be any more reindeer.
Yeah, they did it, in fact, to preserve the environment and to preserve
that you even said it better than more eloquently in a sense that I did. That's what I meant. You can see that this was a good thing. I was just saying how normally, animals in cages, is generally not, a great thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But especially if they're treated, in a bad way. But I was just saying that this right here shows that even these people's mentality, that even when they did do it, it still wasn't out of greed exactly.
Yeah, that's right. It's not really comparable to, say, like the cattle herding or even the bison herding that happened in North America,
right?
Because that was all done with the intent to breed them for the production of meat or whatnot. Yeah. So. Or it is at least done now for sure that way.
But. Oh, yeah.
Move them across Sapmi seasonally to grazing grounds and to monitor their health. They cut their ears to show which Sida owned them and would corral hundreds of deer for the annual slaughter. Herding is much more work than hunting, but by adopting nomadic reindeer herding, the Sami could pay their tribute and save the reindeer. Now,
pause for a second. And remember, pay the tribute to these nations that are demanding taxes in reindeer.
Yeah.
Since don't have money, you're supposed to give reindeer to them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Which in a sense, I think I know Russia does it. I'm not sure about some of the other ones, but they have like a national reindeers that the Sami have to grow that are for them.
Oh, specifically for them?
Yeah, for Russia. Yeah. Yeah. Like the shit doesn't ever end.
Right. Yeah, that's how it seems like.
Well, it certainly won't.
What did they say? This was in the 1700s?
What
they had to domesticate them, and in order to do that, and then so if it's continuing now, they're still paying tribute now.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Yes, exactly. They're having to raise the reindeer for the Russian state, right? who does I don't know what with it, but I was just saying, yeah. So it's still, yeah, and they still don't even own their lands exactly, and still don't even not all the Nordic states, which I think the Nordic states often are pretty thoughtful on a lot of stuff.
They're better than a lot of other states.
Then they're better than America. But anyways, they will not ratify that the Sami are indigenous and own their land. I mean,
right.
Have no land rights or mineral rights or whatever, in a sense. Norway, I think, did, but not all of them. And Norway was terrible, just like all of them, for the longest time. They just, recently started to act like they care more.
Right.
But yeah, go ahead. But
did this. The ones on the coast still relied on the sea, and some Sami assimilated into the settler culture and became farmers. As the colonization of Sapmi intensified during the 1700s, legions of Christian missionaries were dispatched to Sapmi with orders to convert Europe's last pagans. Yoiking was outlawed under penalty of death. The Nuaide were accused of being evil witches that conspired with demons. The Christians toppled the ancient sacred stones, they defiled the holy springs, they leveled ancient forests, and they set thousands of Sami drums and thousands of Nuaide on fire.
Right,
in the
they
19th
burned them
century,
alive.
the Nuaide, the human archives of Sami folklore and culture, were erased. Drum time was over, ending Europe's longest-lasting shamanistic religion. From the hundreds of thousands of Sami drums that once existed, only about 70 remain today. With the Sami converted, language was next. Beginning in the 1800s, thousands of Sami children were taken to church or state-run boarding schools. Their Sami names were replaced with more pronounceable Scandinavian names. They had to stop being Sami, to stop talking Sami, to stop wearing Sami clothes, to stop everything and become Swedes or Norwegians or Finns or Russians. Once sent home, the children knew the nation's language more than their own, putting the Sami language on a path to extinction. Some Sami were shipped off to human zoos in Europe. Nordic race scientists robbed Sami graves and measured their skulls to prove their inferiority. And in Norway and Sweden, Sami women were forcibly sterilized up until the 1970s. It was...
Pause for a second. Is that not some colonization bullshit?
That's exact, like that. You could have written the script and said like the British colonizers of North America. You could have. That's the exact same situation. Yeah, that's right. Like residential schools, forcing them out of their languages.
Right, because Canada and America did that, and Russia did that. But here we're learning, so did Norway, Sweden, and Finland too. Yeah, it wasn't just Russia, because Russia definitely did that shit. But no, don't even leave it there. Some more Europeans need to be responsible for this shit.
Yeah, that's right. Other European countries did the exact, and that's about the same time too, in a lot of ways, right? Like
it is. Yeah. But it's like, still, we still suffer today with this Christian nationalism that, all over the world that fucking, produces nothing but hate and fucking, I don't know how they anyways, I don't want to go into all of them. I don't want to go back to Sami stuff, but it's a similar thing. The reason, and the reason even today, why won't these countries today treat them better today?
Yeah, that's right. I acknowledge the harm that you did and stop doing more harm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Put it lightly, a bad time. But after centuries of forced assimilation, the Sami continued fighting to preserve their languages and culture. They refused to let their children learn about their culture in a museum. The boarding schools finally closed around the 1960s. Now, the Sami were ready for a revival. They just needed a spark. In 1970, Norway announced plans to construct a dam on the Alta River in Sapmi. This would kill the river, flood a Sami village, and destroy reindeer grazing grounds. In 1979, as construction began, Sami and student activists built blockades, sat down in front of bulldozers, and chained themselves to barriers. Some Sami began a hunger strike outside the Norwegian parliament. Sami from all over Sapmi joined the protests. Yoiks were sung. Drums that hadn't been heard in a century were beaten again. People began to fly this flag as a symbol of their identity and resistance. This is now the Sami flag, Later on, the Sami drum would be added to it. Norway panicked. They sent in hundreds of Norwegian police to forcibly remove the protesters. With the protesters beaten back, the construction continued. The state won, and by 1987, the Alta hydroelectric power station was complete. Although a failure, the scale of the protests forced the Norwegian state to concede some rights to the Sami. The Sami Act of 1987 recognized the Sami as the indigenous peoples of Sápmi. Sami parliaments have now been set up in Finland, Norway, and Sweden to oversee Sami matters, although the parliaments still don't have that much power. Alta united the Sami community and started a cultural renaissance. Sami languages, once spoken only by the elderly, are now taught to children in Sami language nests. Today,
that's about where we have it stopped for that section of the video.
Right.
Yeah.
When you play the next one, I'm going to get up and open the door for the cat. My
Okay.
wife closed the door with the cat in here, and the cat's crying. So,
Okay. I'll find the.
Come on. Come on. Go on. Okay.
All right.
Glo is now home to the largest population of Sami. And since herding is economically unviable for most Sami, there is a growing consensus.
We'll pause
that
for
a
1
Sami
second.
Is a Sami.
So he said that now a lot of the Sami are in the big cities. Now remember, some of this is directly related to colonialism.
Right.
They took the children, they brought them down to the city, they made them live like, the city. Cut their hair, whatever, took away their language, their clothes, their everything, culture.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that, just so you understand, that when some are down more in one area, it's not like they decided, just let's go back to the people like primitive, They didn't decide that the primitive life, was not reasonable. They were forced.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying they're primitive. I'm just making that like a people's stupid.
Right. Quote unquote primitive.
Right. What I'm saying is just, what I meant is someone watching this and those are primitive and these are not. No, they were forced to come down. That was a cultural thing. Yeah. And I don't see it as primitive anyway. So that's just a bigotry kind of or judgmental, word. It's not helpful.
Agreed.
Even without reindeer, it's culture, language, and identity that make a Sami.
See, pause for a second.
Controversies like
hey, isn't that crazy? Some people thought that you had to own reindeer to be a Sami.
Right.
Like talk about once again reindeer herder, right? You know what I'm saying? Like
a culture that literally didn't believe in owning anything.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So to somehow say that if you don't own reindeer, you're no longer a Sami is literally ridiculous.
Yeah. Nonsense.
Alta still caused tensions between the Nordic nations and the Sami. Giant mining, fishing, and logging corporations gutted the mountains, cut the forests, polluted the rivers and lakes of Sápmi. As Sweden advertised itself as a forward-looking green economy, it builds giant wind farms across Sami land, destroying reindeer grazing areas. Right now, the Arctic is warming twice as fast as the global average. Drought and wildfires are happening within Sápmi. After 60 years of massive corporations clear-cutting Sápmi forests, 71% of the lichen-rich lands are gone. The reindeer are once again facing extinction. The Sami survived here for 10,000 years. Now they are a voice crying in the wilderness, sounding the alarm on climate change.
Climate change is a real threat for me, my family, for my people, and everyone who is living in the Arctic, but also in every place in the whole world. Without winter, snow, and cold decrease, we don't exist. We will also vanish. So when the Arctic is melting, we are also melting, and my culture is melting.
Sami have traveled to Europe, the Amazon, and even Wet'suwet'en territory in Canada to push for indigenous people's rights and climate action, stating the land is us, and we are the land. We are here to stand in solidarity with our indigenous relatives, and we call on you to have our backs. Today, a new set of challenges faces the Sami, but the Sami, nurtured by by the cold north are used to long periods of darkness because they know that eventually the sun will rise again.
And that is all of our stuff for that video.
So what'd you think so far? You
I
didn't
think-
know they're activists, they're fighting, they're helping
Yeah.
other indigenous cultures.
Yeah. I think I really like the Sami culture. I think that it's maybe I guess I say this about many cultures that aren't capitalist North American cultures. It's like we could learn a lot from these people.
Oh yeah. Well, and that, like I said, that's why I told you before. I feel like it's people think that the stuff that I try to do is not important. I think it's very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got layers of importance. You know, you're learning about other cultures. You're also becoming, like I told you, more compassionate. You're also more understanding. You're like, I'm woke and I understand everything, or I'm open to understand, you know, things, you know, but then not go and try to understand things.
Right.
It's almost like a contradiction. I'm open to the point that I don't have to be inconvenienced.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's democratic social justice, right?
Yeah.
I'll feel bad when you're being murdered by the police, but I'm not actually going to defund them.
Right.
Don't be absurd. Yeah.
Or even limit what they can do, and then have other people do that what they're doing. Like, why in the hell are police going to homeless? I think people need, you know, social workers to go there so they can give them housing and give them some free money and some food and a place to shower and whatever. I mean, like civilization almost, you know?
Yep. Like, yeah, there's no reason for cops to ever be going for like mental health calls or any of that stuff.
I'm just trying. I agree with you that I'm definitely not pro cop, but I'm saying is that even if there is, to people's opinion, a need for police, we have them doing tons of things I don't think they should have anything to do with.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, why? Like, you're seeing police when they go into schools and stuff. They don't know how to work with kids. They work with kids the way they work with adults they think are bad people. Yeah. They throw them to the ground. They put their knee in their back. I mean, what? These are kids.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Kids that weigh 100 pounds less than the cop will get like just beaten and like have a cop on top of their neck and like, it's bullshit.
It's disgusting. And I told you, I have worked before at an inner city thing that worked with youth, right? And sometimes the youth would have issues, but that's if you talk to them and ask them, why are you doing this? What do you want? What do you what do you need? You start, how could we do this? How could we work it out? You start talking to them, but this, I'm crazy. But use things like they always talk about mental health. And, well, you know what the part of mental health that you should be doing is supporting people that can address mental health, not just constantly saying the problem is mental health. Okay, even if mental health is a problem, what are we doing in any kind of way as a solution?
Exactly.
Fucking shut up.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, they do, but you can't just use mental health as like a scapegoat so that we stop talking about the problem, right?
Well, here's another thing too, is that most people that have mental health issues, I'm not saying every single one, but most of them, right? So that when we say mental health, right, because people don't go, well, not the ones that have, like violence tendencies, but most of the other ones, they get abused for being mental.
Yeah.
They don't have they aren't doing the abusing in a sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have it that just get abused. There's nothing in a sense. It's not like a major norm more than a general society is what I mean. There's no evidence that just because you have some mental illness, even like people, like I told you before, people say, oh, that person's a sociopath. Well, I'm a sociopath.
Right.
I'm a high functioning sociopath. I mean, like I told you, there's an empathy scale 1 to 20, and 1 like a psychopath or whatever, and I'm a 3, and most people are like a 9. So I'm super low.
Right.
But it's from abuse. But it's another thing too, is if I do, let's just say how I treat everyone is great, but I have no care. It is, and you learn that I don't care because I was abused to the point that my emotional self died. If you know that, then I'm a victim. Would it be right if I don't do anything wrong, just because of how I think and feel, to feel that I'm less than when I'm a victim? See what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's right.
Just trying to clarify for people, that I feel like, you need to put it in the right context, because that's the ethical context.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Which I think is the one that's important.
For sure.
There's all kinds of opinions. But anyway, but I'm not saying that sociopaths don't do it, usually because they have this non-caring attitude and this low value for others. It is not as hard to do things that's fun, and if it risks people, who cares? But I'm just saying, but I'm just making a comment that, but even in general, it's not like every single person I just meant is every single person is a psychopath. Some people are psychopaths and hurt people. Some people are psychopaths and are doctors.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember reading an article a couple years ago about a doctor who, like, he took one of these tests or whatever, and he's like,
yes,
I'm a psychopath. That's weird. Yes. Like, I didn't really realize it. I know I care less about other people, like, in some ways, but my job is literally to help people. So,
but that's all. That's all I'm trying to say is, going back to when we generalize and we use stigmatize, right, which is kind of bigoted, stigmatize people's mental illness, and then use it as a form of slander or whatever,
right,
or abuse. So I'm just saying that people. It's not that simple. People, and it really still should be about care, even if, like I said, even if absolutely mental health issue is the problem. Every sociopath should be, kept on some chart that we understand what they're doing, so just in case they do something, that we're ready.
Sure.
Even if I did that, everything would still have to be about care, not about actually policing people. Just like the saying, oh, I don't want people that are on food stamps to smoke pot or something. Seriously?
Right.
Or do drugs.
Because that's the real harm in society, is that people on food stamps are smoking.
I'm just saying, why should that have anything to do with you getting care?
Yeah.
It's just, going back to what civilized. Is that civilized? I don't think so. People should get care. Like I said, well, you have to be sober, like some of those, things for the homeless, whatever. You got to be sober to come in here. I think that you should have to be able to not be attacking people to come in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't care about how inebriated or stoned you are.
Because I feel like,
if you're
they own themselves anyways. And why are we making these judgments? People are different. It's like, anyways. So. Let's go back to the video.
We talk about Christian dominance of the culture and like the purity and whatnot, and I think a lot of it comes from that. But, all right, we got another video. Where are we? Here we go. We'll share that full screen. So this is our first segment.
Before you even start, do you already notice what's wrong with this picture?
Yes, it says Lapland.
Yeah. And that means people with rag clothes or scumbags.
Right. Yeah. Norwegian Lapland, no less. Like,
yeah. But I'm just saying, so that should say Sami, because that's the land, and then Sami people. But anyways, and there's, like we said, there's multiple different, of them.
Yeah, that's right. All right.
Far north of the continent of Europe, Lapland covers a vast area stretching over 4 different countries. The Norwegian part of Lapland is the farthest north. It mainly covers the department of Finnmark in the northeast of the country. It is in Lapland that we find the last spaces in Europe that are devoid of any human presence. It's a world in which the erosion of the glaciers
keep calling it Lapland? It's
just
me.
Well, that's
it's irritating.
I was gonna check the channel, but I can't do it while it's in full screen because like it says best documentary, I guess, is the channel.
Yeah.
But
no,
yeah,
I was
it
just saying
seems-
he keeps using that Lapland. I'm saying it to my ears now because I've learned stuff.
right.
I take it as offensive.
Yeah. It's not good to say that.
No.
Yeah.
has left deep traces. Although it is near the pole, extremes of climate are attenuated by the proximity of the Gulf Stream. Thanks to the effects of this warm current, forests have grown in an area which should, in theory, be covered by ice. The Sami were the first people to inhabit Lapland. As there was no one before them, the Sami, or Lapps, are what we call an indigenous people, the only one in Europe. Norwegian Lapland, like the rest of Norway, suffered immensely during the Second World War. The land of the reindeer was bitterly fought over by the warring nations.
That's all. Oh no, we still got a little bit yet.
The Sami flag flies alongside the Norwegian flag outside the Sami parliament, which has been built in Karasjok. The design of the building is based on the shape of the traditional tent. The people's representatives are elected from among the Sami living in Norway. Norway, in fact, is home to 2/3 of a community numbering about 70,000 people. They are Sami from father to son. It's the bloodline that prevails, but you can also become a Sami by speaking.
Yeah, I think that's the end of where our first video
Right, yeah.
segment goes. So, yeah, like you say, like I'm not a big fan of the constant use of the term Lapland, and it seems quite obvious. Like this documentary was made maybe late, like quite a few years ago, I would think, because it seems
probably,
like yeah, I don't know. They keep referring to it as Norwegian Lapland, or like how it almost like it belongs to Norway. And like,
oh, I'm sure that's how they feel. Colonizers do think that.
Yeah, I'm sure that is how they feel. But
yeah.
And then we've only got one more section of this video. We're not using a whole lot here.
The Sami believe that the sky is full of spirits, a belief that, in theory, is incompatible with the Protestant religion that the majority of the population follows. But the traditional religions are not the only ones practiced.
Its official religion of the Sami now is Christianity, but shamanism is still present in many forms in the Sami society of today.
For Madhu Kapura, the close relationship of the Sami with nature explains their belief in shamanism.
But it's not it's not the dominant religion anymore as it was until about the 17th century. So today one finds shamanism still in healing traditions, in kind of folklore, and in many other ways you find the shamanistic worldview is still very present in Sami culture today. The most important thing I think about the Sami traditional religion, and I prefer to call like that, is that it was this intimate link between the belief and the reality. So it was totally linked to daily life. So the belief would give very clear guidelines on where to fish, how to behave in the nature, very clear guidelines, how to behave to other people.
In the area of Kautokeino, Sami wear the kofte, the traditional costume, when they go to Easter Mass. The finely embroidered designs on the clothes differ from one geographical origin to another, but only a practiced eye can distinguish between them. The men's costumes are different from the women's, and can also vary according to age and social status.
See, pause for a second. But if you genderize clothing, you can see that's a problem. I don't feel like I should actually, I mean, if it was up to me, I would like to be called an intersex male or whatever. Or intersex genderqueer male as my gender. I mean, and then other people are trans, and other people can be, non-binary, in a different way than me, whatever. But I'm just saying, other people are non-binary. The fact that to state that you have to wear a gendered clothing, just saying, even though I like some of the ideas from Sammy, that definitely would not work.
Yeah, that's right. I think
just
I
saying.
think that's fair.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, right? Like you don't have to pretend that a culture was perfect in order to say that they were marginalized, right, and colonized and dominated and abused.
Exactly.
So,
in which they were, and I agree with you. But in general, if you have a trait like slavery or something, if a tribe supported that,
it's still bad.
Still bad. I'm just saying is that doesn't mean I against everything about them. I'm just saying that aspect, or like I said, anything that forces gender.
I find, and again, I try not to criticize too much because I don't know the ins and outs of every indigenous culture near me, but there are some traditions that seem very gendered here, and it does, like in the indigenous traditions and whatnot. And I do, like, as a person who believes in gender equality or what have you, I do go, well, is that good, or is that like a part of their culture that's like maybe something that could be, I don't know, changed if the people wanted within that culture wanted to change it? Like, I don't know.
Well, I think that it's likely that could happen, but yes, I think it's, and I think it's healthy though to look at all the things, not just. It's like how I feel like the Democrats want to look at anybody, including Joe Biden. It's like, no matter if the guy said absolute racist shit in the past, right? Because he did. Like when the school busings or whatever, he said, I don't want my children to live in a racial jungle. I don't know, racist.
Yeah, that's racist.
I'll call that shit racist. No fucking problem. So, anyways, I'm just saying in a lot of different stuff. Beside the point, I'm just making a thing that people like don't want to see. It's good to see the real truth. It doesn't mean you can't, like I said, value their struggle. Doesn't mean you can't value some of their cultural ideas. I certainly do. Caring about everybody, making sure everyone's needs are met. That's a fucking great thing. Caring about,
their deep ties with the environment. Yeah,
it's just a hell of a good idea. Anyway, so that doesn't mean that in the sense that you and me are looking at this culture and going, if they have any negative things, we're just going to not see them.
Right. Yeah.
No.
And also, like, because that's one of the things you often see on the other side of it is like they'll go, oh yeah, well, they were deeply gendered or what have you, so we can criticize them and we don't have to take any of their good things into account.
Right.
And that's not right either.
Oh no, I agree with you, and I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially for indigenous cultures. I'm just saying that there's aspects that I can think that this is something that, I wouldn't want to see in any culture.
Yeah, that's right.
And just to make a point too, I'm not against people being cis and male or female only and not filling, other stuff. I mean, I think that it would be great if everyone could just be what they are. I mean,
that's right.
That's all I'm supporting. I mean, I know that's absolutely revolutionary, but yeah.
What people are in control of themselves.
Yeah. Well, and people, what's really I don't like is that people will say they believe that, and then you bring up something that they don't agree with, and they immediately say no. Like if people will tell them, do you think that a person is an adult at a certain age? Can they have sex with who they want? And then the same question is, can people do drugs when they're 18? Can they do, whatever, look at naked stuff or go be a prostitute or kill themselves at 18 or whatever they want to do with their fucking body.
They're truly free to do what they want.
Right. Because isn't that what you say when the people say, and I don't disagree with it. It's just, I don't think that they hold it as a universal standard. They go, women own themselves. They have a right to abortion. They own their own bodies. And I'm like, yes, they do. Thank goodness. And let's build all morality on that statement right there.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
But
We're going to continue that into legalizing or decriminalizing all sex work. We're going to legalize all drugs.
exactly. Exactly. People think that's radical. No, that's actually, how is it radical to say people own themselves?
It's a natural
the least
extension.
radical thing. It should be just a fucking universal basic.
Yeah. And it's like you said, like they know it when it's something they care about, right? Like even right wingers, they know it when they don't want to get a vaccine and they feel forced to get it. They know that they own their body. It's just as soon as it extends beyond that they forget all of a sudden.
But both of them do. Both sides of the liberal, not being, in a sense, I guess like anarchists, that we just see. I feel generally, of course, I can't talk for all of them, but generally, I feel, just look at it as a plain slate. These things are the same. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
You either support human rights and then people's bodily autonomy, or you don't. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that's like, I think like when it comes to like the vaccine thing, like right wingers, they didn't want to get the COVID vaccine. And what they don't seem to grasp is that while they believe in their bodily autonomy all of a sudden, we believe in it more universally, so that we want them to get a vaccine so that they are not imposing their own bodily autonomy onto the bodies of others. Right?
I totally agree with you.
Like, it's not inconsistent to be pro-vaccine and 100% free bodily ownership of yourself.
Yeah.
Just
some things just make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And I imagine anybody watching this channel would be like, yeah, of course. What are you talking about? But it's a thing that has to be said regularly.
But that's why, like I said, we don't just do, like, I just don't teach religion.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot more.
Yeah. My goal really is, like, is that actually all this to me is the same. It's all about me being a revolutionary and just using my own style why atheism? It's not really for me that I care about pushing atheism. I really want to be that you turn into an anarchist socialist. This is my ultimate goal, not really atheist. Because what they see is that no one should tell other people what to do. So you're already on our path.
That's right. That's right.
Everybody should own themselves, including choosing to have religion or not. See, you're on our right path. Yep. You're starting to get the hints of the little good stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm just making a comment that to me, it all in a sense works together. Because just like I said, the more compassion, I feel like anarchists need more compassion. That's what helps us be anarchists.
Yeah.
Because what are we going to do? Just copy the state? Just copy the
create our own forms of dominance hierarchy.
Yeah, just make more colonization. I mean, really? Then I feel like you're not talking about anarchism anymore.
Yeah.
We're like to go, what if other people never decide to be like you? I said, that's the cool thing about anarchism.
That's totally fine. Yeah. They don't actually have to be like me. That's pretty handy though.
Anyways, yeah.
So that was actually the last clip from our other video, or from the second video. So now we're on to the third video.
Right. And you remember I told you we're going to do the fourth video. It's only 3 minutes. So
yes.
That's what I put in your inbox or whatever.
Yeah.
But after this one.
Okay.
A history class or history of religion class. So he's I think it's a college professor, just so you know. And
interesting.
I'm also while he's talking, I'm going to show some pictures of art I've done, because he just uses the same picture in a sense. So.
Okay.
And slowly we'll be transitioning into looking at their spiritual traditions, their spiritual beliefs, touching on practices, afterlife, rituals, and deities. So I'm going to make several comparisons, allusions to other peoples, because the Sami are a fascinating nexus point between many spiritual beliefs that we see across the world. I've mentioned before in the course this Ugaric people or Uralian languages coming from the Ural Mountains in Russia. The Sami would be a breakoff of this Samoyedic tradition, Finno-Ugaric people. So as I've mentioned, parts of Russia, all around Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, Finland, especially Finland. We'll be talking about that quite a bit. Although it could be considered an offensive term, more regionally, they have been referred to as the Lapps or the Laplanders. There have been traces found of this moving culture of the Sami by virtue of excavated pottery that would lead them all the way back into the 2nd millennium BC near the area.
So 4,000 years ago.
Or other evidence that would put them there around Finland, at least by 1500 BC. So at the very least, we're talking, what, 3?
So 3 seasons, say 3,500. But like I told you, actually, there were, in a sense, members of who are Sami's DNA already there at 10,000. So he is only referring to the last ones to come in. Just straightening that out so you don't get too confused that say they haven't been there 10,000 years. Well, some of the DNA absolutely has.
Right. Yeah.
1,500 years here. There are the traditional narrative is coming from the Siberian tribes of Russia and moving their way on over to the northwest. However, there are interesting leads to suggest that this is a mixing with what is referred to as Magdalene culture, the ancient Magdalene culture of the area of France, to move north with the reindeer after the Ice Age had melted, putting this influence all the way back to 17,000 years ago.
No, they only got there. Pause for a second. So first off, if you're going to say any amount of cultural relevance to shamanism, because that's kind of what he's trying to say, then you have to go back to the first U5 burial of the Graviton people, right? I mean, in the sense it's in Czechoslovakia. That would be the first Graviton U5 burial. I just made a comment because he goes, oh, the culture goes back 17,000 years. Well, if you're going to say that, then it goes back 30-something thousand or 30.
Right.
I mean, but let's not be too confusing.
Why pick 17,000 instead of
because those people DNA went into the Magdalenian, and then some of them were in Spain, obviously the V, and then the U5 goes up into things. So, but like I said, with I also as the male in a sense, whatever. But the I went first, like just I by itself. Then I1, which is another branch in a sense, later, younger, whatever. Anyways, I'm just saying that when even this is a teaching a class, I'm just saying, and I've taught, and if you look at the blog, you'd really get it because I put all kinds of stuff.
Right.
But I'm just saying, you're going to be looking at a picture anyways right now. But when I put this together, is because even the college person is in a sense not teaching it totally accurately.
Right.
So also this goes back to, don't tell the archaeologists try to tell me that I don't do it accurate. Anyways.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm just trying to say that my point is just a joke. But I'm just saying, see, even college professors don't really do it accurate when they're explaining it. So that's all I was trying to say.
Time before it was referred to as Magdalene was coined the age of the reindeer. And again, at this point, we're talking about the end of the Ice Age. This is a large scope. And why we point to this influence is the use of the labyrinth, the symbol of the labyrinth, and also a genetic tie to the Berbers of Spain, the ancient Berbers of Spain, that goes back 9,000 years. So when it comes to the living of the Sami people, we see this semi-nomadic lifestyle of reindeer herding, which is not far off from what you still see in tribes in Siberia to this day. But you also have fishing, mostly coastal, fur trapping, and sheep herding. Now, in the modern day, this has been a lot more controlled. They have an exception in many cases of being the only ones who can cultivate reindeer. So when reindeer is purchased in Scandinavia or exported, by all accounts, it's coming from the Sami people. Now, something of an interesting note is that the Sami language, although diverse, and I'm going to say this a few times, the Sami are a people. It's not quite the scope of saying simply Native American. And what I mean by that is there are many different beliefs in one grouping of people. What I'm referring to today is a conglomeration. There are distinguishings within this. It's not necessarily fair to throw them all in the same bag. But an interesting note about the language is that it is an accumulation of now dead languages. If you can think of any language that we're speaking, like for instance, me right now with English, the truth of it is that every language is a collection of shambles from ancient languages that are likely dead. For instance, Latin. And the Sami are no exception to this. So there are many languages that have been picked up along the way to coin or to constitute what is considered modern Sami. So interesting note there, right? Carrying the language of extinct languages. And so at the very least, we can say that the Sami were definitely inhabiting Scandinavia during the Bronze Age. And this influence would be most felt and most deviated to Finland and Estonia. When I talked about Finnish mythology, spirituality, over and over again, I had to mention the Sami. And so where was their mark? How long? You know, I'm saying at least the Bronze Age, and I've given quite a few dates dating all the way back to Iceland, or not Iceland. I mean, they're Scandinavian too, all the way back to the Ice Age. But these petroglyphs, these archaeological findings, have settlement in this area of which they inhabit all the way back to 10,000 BC. So is this the Sami? Is this something else? Or is this, you know, this is a confusing situation. History is very ambiguous, nebulous at this point. So this relationship between the two, right? The Scandinavians, what people consider the Scandinavians and the Sami. And this is a very, very complicated ordeal. And I don't stand to speak to it in whole. But they seem to have very little.
It's not complicated. They fucking own the land. Done. Done.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to build something on their lands? I don't know. Talk to them. Oh,
yeah.
They said no. Oh, sounds like it's no.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's right.
How the fuck complicated is that? Anyways, I just, you know, I guess that's my anarchism. They own it. They have a right to their own land. You don't just get to go in there and start building shit cutting down all the trees, which they have, and do it. No, that's all wrong. All that shit's fucked up.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's not complicated. That's all I'm saying.
No, I agree.
Complicated. No, it's seriously not complicated.
It's actually not complicated. They live there. That's it.
Like, the hell? No. It's like going on, it's like the American government going on, even now, going on in the reservations and just building shit.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Like, fuck no.
Which, I mean, they, in some ways, they have over the years, right? Whenever
American government has not done any treaty there is. If they did, there wouldn't be the America like it is today.
Yeah.
They showed you that thing. If all these different treaties for land, holy shit, they broke fucking all of them. America would look nothing like this.
Yeah.
Same with Canada. I mean,
yep.
And Russia. I mean, none of these places, and Norway, Sweden, Finland, right?
It's one of those things where the people, indigenous peoples, they were moved onto land that we considered, or that, we, the colonizers, considered valueless. And when they found a way to make it work, then we took it from them again. And
exactly.
when they made that work, we took that from them again. Like every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
As people can see, me and Cory are not pro colonizers.
No.
Anyway, so that goes back to that's not complicated. Anyway, so let's just keep playing.
That's right.
But yeah, not complicated.
Contact. And when I say
something.
that, I mean in regards to Norway and Sweden. Obviously, the contact would have been much more in Finland and Estonia, but that's a different story. So very little contact overall on that side of things. However, once Christianization was coming in, then we see that Norway and Sweden want to become the aggressors. And this is a story that I could rehash all over the world, right? So it's this forced assimilation, the considering of these peaceful people who are not bothering you to be primitive, to be in need of being civilized, right? I mean, it's just dripping with condescension. So the beliefs, the shamanism, the polytheism, the paganism, if you want to coin it like that, was very much severed by the 18th century. So depending on the place, it's a different brand of Christianity that was a part of this forced assimilation. Russian Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox, Lutheran. Now, what's curious here, from what we can restitch and from what is being revived, which we'll talk about that later, is that it's not just one and it's not just the other. It is both shamanism and polytheism. So here we have a very unique point in religious spiritual development by our standards, which the only, I guess, nearness to it would be the Finnish. And when I got to mention the Olmec were also in this in-between state of shamanism and polytheism.
So were Chinese cultures, shamanist. I mean, sorry. I don't agree. Multiple cultures. I don't. Maybe not now that Christianity has like crushed them all.
Right.
So it's like saying, well, now that everything is colonized, it doesn't look like there's too many natives. Well, no fucking shit.
Like that'll happen when you do genocide. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, this goes back to like, remember I showed you that map, which I'm going to show people right now. The map of all the extinct languages in Europe.
Right.
A lot of extinct languages.
Imagine
if those were all tribes, right? With all those distinct languages, which is maybe the case. Or certainly, there's some reason they're speaking the language. But anyway, But now it's not that case. And now these France, Germany, whatever, all these, countries, states that impose their borders and all this. And even the distinct languages show that imagine trying to draw border lines with those names are like all over the place. I mean, yeah, I'm anti-state. So that whole concept,
that's right.
Just colonization, really.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. So yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to take a
bathroom
quick bathroom break.
All right.
I'll hit the play button and I'll go.
Okay, right on.
So straight away, just by giving that terminology, we can already assume a few things that we've seen throughout the course, right? So if we're talking about shamanism, and there's this obvious animism and credence to supernatural activity, that your daily life is implicated, given, manifested by the spiritual world in some way, an interconnectivity between you and nature, that there is no distinction. And when it comes to the shamans, they're called the Nuadi. And so just like where we see elsewhere, the individual or individuals entrusted with the use of the drum, with the use of chants, with the use of sacred talismans, and most notably here, since we're talking about reindeer culture, the fly agaric mushroom. So when I was talking about the Siberians in that session, I mentioned the Evenki and this very strong tie to where we get the Christmas story from, where we get Santa Claus and all this weird mythos. However, it would be just as credible to point to the Sami, because the Sami are coming from the same tradition, the use of the fly agaric mushroom, the use of reindeer. If you want to learn more about that, go back to that session. I'm done talking about Santa Claus. And so in this way too, all these old tropes. So we have sacred sites. We don't have churches. We can build things, that's true, but it's all about sacred land. It's about sacred mountains, sacred waters. It's the land. And you congregate in this land. These places are sacred. And this is where you'd find, through excavation or otherwise, these depictions of labyrinths and these depictions of petroglyphs. Now, much like all shamanic traditions dating this far back and modern, you see the use of the three-world cosmogony. And when it comes to the specific flavor of the Sami, we have the upper world, which is associated with the south, which those that don't know, when you call in the directions, the south is associated with fire, heat, the sun. The upper world is the sun, warmth, life, and is associated with the color white, like the sun. This is the dwelling places of the gods. This is the ether. The middle world is where we're at. And you can tie this to Norse mythology in the term Midgard. This is where we hang out for however long and is associated with the color red. Curious, maybe a blood reference there. And then there's the third world, the underworld, associated with the color black or darkness, or that which is unseen, associated with the direction of north, which is, if you don't know, when you call in the directions, the direction of north is related to the element of earth, underworld, ground, inhabited by all manner of animals that live in the ground or are associated with burrowing in the ground, like otters or seals, when they're diving under the ocean. So right away, you can already see that maybe there might be some ties between the Sami and Norse mythology. And we're going to talk about that throughout. But that's not unique because, again, we're not only seeing similarities with the Norse, we're seeing similarities with the Finnish, the Estonians, Siberia, and by extension, all the way to the natives of North America. So it's interesting to note here that the natives of America have a distant relative with some similar metaphysics and fundamental beliefs all the way in Scandinavia. What does that
Pause
say?
for a second.
Nope.
So
anyhow,
pause for just 1 second. So NDNA, right, is what connects to the Sami languages, right? The Uralic languages. And NDNA, I can't remember now which native tribe of the north, but NDNA is Inuit maybe or something. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess that's in Canada, right? Probably, actually.
Yeah, very far north Canada.
Yeah. So, but anyways, my point is, I'm saying, so he's like saying some far off connection. Well, if you mean the same DNA family, then yeah.
Right.
I don't know how he's saying that. It sounds like he's saying the religion is somewhat similar. Well, the DNA is the same, or I mean similar. So yeah.
Right. So that makes sense. Like they
came
physically
from
traveled there, and
it's having similar stuff, and it's actually the similar people. I mean that's not a great. Anyways, that's what I'm just saying. So they actually have DNA over in America, not Americas. Yeah, Americas, North America, Canada, not America. But there may, I shouldn't say that. There may be some that made it down to America. I don't know.
Okay.
I do know it's in Canada, but I'm a lot of North Canada, I think. But so I don't know. But anyways, I don't know enough about N exactly to know that if it came down, it may have. I don't remember.
Right. It's possible.
Off the top of my head, but anyway. So I'm saying it is similar. But so they have, and N comes from China, goes into Siberia, so it affects the Siberian. So like the archaeologists we're going to talk to that knows about shamanism and stuff. That I read the whole book, and she says that it's only correct scientifically to her, because I don't share that agreement, but that shamanism is basically anybody that connects to Siberia. So, and she says that Sami people are related to Siberia, and that I think the Inuit, so but only Siberia in a sense. To her can use the term shamanism.
Okay, so like other places, like in Africa, say, if they don't have a connection to Siberia, then they wouldn't. She would say that they don't do shamanism.
I guess that she would say you have to use different name. I know that some people use witch doctors. Some people say shaman or understand it be like that. So I don't agree. I mean, first off, also shamanism, which she's talking about from Siberia, is R and U went to Europe, so Europe definitely is. And then you have R going from Siberia all the way into Central Africa. So, and 8,000 years ago when they showed up, is a belief maybe in gods of some kind. Sounds like they're getting it from this paganistic shamanism, like the Sami, so it's not special. So probably with the Eastern hunter-gatherers had probably some version of that maybe. So, which we call paganism. But anyway, so but even the Norse, which people call pagans, actually had totemistic warriors and shamanistic stuff. I mean, and Odin was originally supposedly a shaman, in real life, or told people to keep doing shamanism. So, I mean, they are literally, totemistic shamanism, paganism, which is what the Sami are. And like you were saying, isn't that what Africa's doing?
Right. Seems like, I mean, I guess it's like we were saying before, like different areas, I guess, would call it different things, right? Like,
well, yeah, and I agree that they should have the right to. I mean, but I think when we see it as a type of behaviors, I think that it relates, because
it's fine to point out that it's related, eh?
Well, because even like they say, and even if you just limited your understanding of shamanism to only Sami or only Siberia, there's more than one. So, I mean, which culture are you talking about? The Ket that call themselves the men, or some of the other ones that have more female leanings? That's already different. Are those the same? Obviously can't be. Anyways, right. So would that affect their understanding of shamanism? I don't know. Do you think so? If they have male dominance or female dominance or equalitarian, don't you think that might affect how they interact? Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so, anyways, because like just put it this way. In some kind of cultures in, say, Siberia, you could maybe have where a woman can't even touch certain, shaman things for say, real patriarchal. Then you have other ones where women were the shamans,
right?
Or it was women and transgender, or genderqueer or intersex or something other than just male,
right?
Including, like I said, revolving gender, like as in drag. So
right.
Because they consider that also, to me, it was shamanism in Siberia. So it's not like a stretch. They actually still do that, or still, in a sense, there is that thinking. So I'm just saying. So even if my point is, there's no monolith. So I really don't like this whole, to me, colonialism and the fact that only these can be what I think is, shamanism.
Right.
I don't feel that's accurate. Plus, like I said, I think this is animism. It's also shamanism. It also has some totemism.
Right.
And guess what? It also has paganism. So pick what it is. You get, and when I feel like when you accurately look at religion, I think it is more of that.
Yeah.
You see that they actually have some of all. Christianity has totemism. It has shamanism. It has animism. It has paganism. You have all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so. Anyways, I'm just saying they don't get that. To me, it's all really the same. You guys are just complaining about this shit, and I'm going. That's what I learned, really, as understanding this from the atheist perspective, not buying any of these. Like you said the other day, you have a metaphysical worldview that doesn't have supernatural in it. So when someone says non-human, you didn't assume they meant supernatural beings.
Right. Yeah. That was my assumption, was that it was an animal of some kind, but
right. But so you can see where there's there's all these different things going on all at the same time. But see, I think if you really get religion, you realize that everyone's doing this,
right?
And then and that's why it's also, I feel, so easy for it to change, because it's this whole, it doesn't have a guaranteed thing. Yeah. Even Christians think their thing is so perfect, hasn't changed. Seriously? It fucking hasn't.
Right.
Your 40,000 denominations prove that it has.
Yeah.
So
I think we've only got a couple more minutes on this one.
Right.
4 minutes, I guess.
Oh. This shattering of the Sami religion in the 1800s also shattered the credo, the cultural reverence of the shaman, the Nuadi. And so this is something that's being brought.
I'm sorry, but if I was in a class with this guy, I would be sleeping.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be insulting, but my brain is going.
Sounds like
go
a
to
college
sleep.
Course, right?
Yeah, go to sleep, Cory.
Back, trying to fix, to unbreak it, because there's been systemic prejudice and discrimination and all manner of gaslighting for those that act as a community leader, a healer, someone that you come to for help. Oh. So when it comes to this transition,
He's
You like
exhausted.
that part, right?
He's exhausted with himself. He's tired. He doesn't want to be up in front of this class anymore. Oh,
No, I think actually his exhausted feeling is because he's saying this kind of bigotry and stuff, and that people looking at, you know, in other words, a priest is wonderful. We're all, oh, Father,
right?
Gotta be talking. Don't.
But that guy's a witch. So.
But right. See, and that's how his argument sounds a little more like we should respect their religion, which I don't. So. But as a people and as a culture and as a right to have that religion, now that I do respect.
Right.
Once again, he owns himself, or she owns himself, or they own themselves, and whatever. So the people are the ones that should be deciding this, and not me.
Yeah.
So saying that in the sense the Nawadi are evil, like you said, is a cultural religious bigotry, not what an atheist should do.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
Like literally that's some bigotry. What the fuck?
Yeah.
But it could, because of what the point of what you said, a pastor or a Catholic father or priest or whatever the hell they call them, and the shaman, to me, are all the same.
Right. Yeah.
So it's they that think that there's like one.
Yeah, they're the ones making the distinctions.
Yeah, not me.
Great. Yeah.
Or this otherness in polytheism. It's this natural development of storytelling that happens in shamanism, where in the storytelling or in the development of beliefs, when you see a natural phenomena, you start to characterize this natural phenomena with a name and a kind of anthropomorphization or a sort of presence, an associative presence. So this is why we're saying both shamanistic and polytheistic. This is not wasted on the neo-pagan movements that are uprising all around the world, really, not just in Europe and not just here in the States. So this is part of that effort that they want to fix this discrimination. They want to bring it back. They want to shake off the shackles of Christianization. They want to return to their natural way of being, unfettered by the controlling, domineering nature of whatever we've cooked up here as a species across the world. And so to return to healing the sick, to become wise men, wise women, to use traditional medicines, to return to that simplicity. And this Christianization has worked its way in through assimilation. And in these healing rituals, at times you will see them using scripture. It's kind of blend between these ancient ceremonies and the Bible, curiously enough. But in these ancient cultures,
right, which more than likely, just pause for a second, which, wow, they add some Bible verses in their shamanism. Colonization. I don't think we need to even come on. Yeah, they just decided the Bible was so wonderful. They wanted to use verses out of it to put it into their religion that was lacking. Yeah. Keep going.
Right, eh?
Yeah.
That you don't quite see in the modern, which is this natural curiosity, this openness, this willingness to learn and to develop, to explore, to accept people, as opposed to what was brought to them, which is hard, discriminatory, categorical, and demeaning. I mean, you are born of sin. I mean, how does that taste in your mouth? So it's also this return to not necessarily just worshiping in houses and in conjured buildings, but returning to the reverence of the lakes, of the forests, of mountains. I mean, what have you? To return to a deep appreciation, understanding, and gratitude of in the world of which you exist, as opposed to treat it as a curse. And so I want to also mention here too that I'm giving a lot of generalities across this. I've mentioned it before. The Sami are not one that I can completely cover within the span of an hour. If you truly...
All right. That's actually the end of our
correct,
segment,
because we're also not going to listen to it the whole hour. And if you want to go listen to Cory falling asleep for the whole hour,
nothing against his teaching style. Like, I actually just have trouble sitting in a class listening to people. So
well, you seem to do kind of well working with me. So maybe
we have a good back and forth, so that helps a lot.
Right.
But if I just have to sit and I just listen, I fall asleep 99% of the time. Okay, and then we have one last very short video.
Right. Because it's going to tie into climate change more. Because I feel like, once again, you can't talk about all this without bringing that up.
Right.
It's such a dire thing in the world and also to them.
All right.
Returning the dead to their final resting place. Caskets containing the skulls of their ancestors finally being given back to the Sami people by the Swedish state, after being taken to graves in the 1950s to be picked over for research. While this gesture may heal some wounds, new ones are being opened up, as the government is accused of failing to properly deal with a climate crisis that threatens the Sami way of life.
Much of the wealth that Sweden has built on is built on Sami ground. The first thing is to face the history of colonization. What Sweden as state has done to my people.
Just a few kilometers inside the Arctic Circle, the town of Jokkmokk is a center of Sami culture in Sweden.
Scientists say the Arctic is warming up twice as fast as the average global rate, putting the Sami on the front lines of climate change.
Look at that, they still call it Lapland.
No kidding.
Keenly in ancient forests like this, where lichen growing on the ground provides food for reindeer, an animal now facing mass starvation.
Thousands have died despite their herders' efforts to feed them by hand, while melting ice sheets have cut off their migratory routes across the Arctic. Sami reindeer herders say the situation is made worse by the disappearance of the old forests, replaced by plantations grown for logging by big business.
Land that we've had for thousands of years has been given over to the control of others. That risks our people's culture being weakened or ceasing to exist altogether.
Sweden has taken action to meet other climate pledges, including the creation of wind farms and hydroelectric plants.
Today, Sweden is placing almost all of their windmill parks up on Sami territory, just exploiting it again, destroying it again, making our lands into these huge industrial parks.
Sweden's Environment Minister refused to comment on our report. Struggles between the Sami people and the Swedish government go back for centuries. The climate crisis has pitted them against each other again. It's a dispute that must find common ground swiftly if the Sami way of life and the Arctic as we know it are to survive. Paul Rees, Al Jazeera, Lapland, Sweden.
Yeah, it says Lapland again.
Yeah, what the hell, eh? Just keep repeating the offensive term. And that's Al Jazeera, so it should be a pretty progressive outlet too.
So, but just showing that, and that's why I feel like it's important for me to try to teach people so they can be, more understanding about this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting stuff. Like you say, like there's colonization just seems to work the same no matter where it is, right?
Right? Yeah, it's fucking bullshit no matter where it is.
Yeah. All right. So our next thing you say, Cory, look at and comment on the art below, the drums in particular. So,
right, and so the one in the corner, remember I showed you that's the person who died.
Right.
You're gonna read about him that shaman, the Nawaidi.
Yeah. All right.
So what do you think after looking at that? And people are looking at it right now.
I mean, I find it quite. I like the art on the drums is quite nice. I don't know. I like it. It reminds me of like other indigenous art that you might find, like from various Turtle Island tribes, right? Like
right. In the Americas.
Yeah, in the Americas, yeah.
Yeah, and as you see too that there's a north and south, meaning and they are different looking, right?
Right. Yeah, they do have a different style.
What I'm saying is that saying that all shamans have to be the same is like saying all monotheistics have to be the same or all Christians have to be the same. I'm just making a point that I don't personally hold a view or agree with anyone that says who's going to decide what religion you are. And nor do I think it's correct to limit what exactly makes the religion. Here's two Sami drums, literally not the same.
Yeah, that's right. Same quote unquote people.
Right. So you get what I'm saying. So I think that to me personally, when they have these, I feel like wrong opinions that we can go and judge what other people are doing exactly. Saying these little tiny variations going, okay, now that one is shamanism, that one is not.
It makes me think of like because you've got here a map, North Sami and South Sami and the Sami language groups, and they're highlighted in various ways. And it makes me think of like I mean, maybe they didn't stand out as or have individual nations the way that the North American tribes maybe did, or like definitely did, but there's definitely a distinction between the North and the South because distance affects culture, right?
Right. But see, this goes back to like what I say. But this also help you grasp that religion is culture?
Yeah,
when they say it's, because I said sometimes the archaeologists get mad when I say, well, religion is just to me a cultural product. It's like languages. I mean, there's no language that's disconnected from any cultural anything. In fact, that's how generally they can track culture around is where the language goes.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it's funny that people like that are actually like educated and thoughtful would not agree with that. But okay.
Right, but anyway, but this is the thing too, is that even though I just believe in them, I'm not saying it's okay to pick on them and you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I do feel like this goes back to the thing: is this important to learn? Well, I think so. It's just changed you and my opinions of people who live in the North, even in Europe.
Yep.
I mean, before I didn't know as much. Learning it has definitely changed my thinking.
And I mean, I guess part of me knew on some level, I knew that like colonization affected the people, like was done in the same way, but I didn't realize just how like they almost follow a script, right?
Right.
Like it's like residential schools, murdering the religious leaders, what else was there? Oh, digging up their graves and studying them for phrenology or what have you.
Yeah.
Skull shapes and sizes.
Right. Well, no, and then the conclusion also, like the racist shit and the Nazis, that these people are inferior.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, just what the fucking hell does that matter about shit at all? Yeah, just horse shit. But and then keeping them in anyways and not respecting them, But
the
yeah,
forced
but
assimilation.
worse to take. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is crazy. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I just didn't realize it was that clearly like it was almost like they got in a room and they're like, here's how we're going to do colonization for everybody.
Right. Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah. All right, so the drum of Anders Paulsen, top left, Northern Sami drum style.
Right, which is you see in the picture.
Yeah. And the Bindle drum, which is the top right, Southern Sami drum style, represent variations in Sami drums, their shape, decoration, and history. Paulsen's drum was confiscated in Vadzo in 1691, while the Bindle drum was bought by a museum official in 1925. Vadzo and Bindle being in opposite corners of the Sami world. Paulsen's drum has a typical Northern Sami pattern with several separate levels representing the different layers of the spiritual worlds. The Bindle drum has a typical Southern Sami decoration, a rhombus-shaped sun symbol in the center with other symbols around the sun representing people, animals, landscape, and deities. Anders Paulsen, or Anders Poulsen, died in 1692, was a Sami. I just heard this many, many times, but I'm having trouble remembering how to pronounce it. Noadi, or shaman, who was the last victim of the many Vardo witch trials, which took place between 1621 and 1692. In Sami form, his name was Poala Ande. He was born in Torn, Lappmark, in Sweden, married and lived in Varanger. He was active as a Noadi and as such used a Sami drum. The drum was taken from him by force on the 7th of December, 1691, during the Christianization of the Sami people, and he was put on trial for idolatry for being a follower of the pagan Sami Shamanism religion. The law used to persecute him was, however, formally the witchcraft law. Poulsen explained the drum's use during his trial in February 1692. The case was considered significant, and the local authorities sent a request to Copenhagen about how to deal with it. Before a sentence could be reached, however, he was killed by a fellow prisoner who suffered from insanity. Poulsen's drum became part of the Danish royal collection after his death and eventually entered the collections of the National Museum of Denmark. It was on loan to the Sami Museum in Karustrup, northern Norway from 1979, but it took a 40-year struggle for it to be officially handed back to the Sami people in 2022, according to Jelena Porsanger, director of the museum, following an appeal by Norway's Sami president to the Queen Margrethe of Denmark.
Yeah, that they should get their stuff back after you've killed them. Yeah.
Yeah, weird, eh?
Imagine an indigenous tribe of Canada. How would they feel?
Right.
Or in the Americas or South America. Or yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I imagine actually there's probably many things that are still owned,
oh yes,
have not been returned by So, Sami shamanism, traditional Sami spiritual practices and beliefs are based on a type of animism, polytheism, and what anthropologists may consider shamanism. The religious traditions can vary considerably from region to region within Sapmi. Traditional Sami religion is considered to be animism, the Sami belief that all significant natural objects such as animals, plants, rocks, etc. possess a soul, and from a polytheistic perspective, traditional Sami beliefs include a multitude of spirits. Sami traditional beliefs and practices commonly emphasizes veneration of the dead and of animal spirits. The relationship with the local animals that sustain the people, such as the reindeer, are very important to the kin group. A Sami drum is a shamanic ceremonial drum used by the Sami people of Northern Europe. Sami ceremonial drums have two main variations, both oval-shaped. A bowl drum in which the drum head is strapped over a burl, and a frame drum in which the drum head stretches over a thin ring of bent wood. The drum head is fashioned from reindeer hide. In Sami Shamanism, the Nuadi used the drum to get into a trance or to obtain information from the future or other realms. The drum was held in one hand and beaten with the other. While the Nuadi was in a trance, his free spirit was said to leave his body to visit the spirit world. When used for divination, the drum was beaten with a drum hammer, a vuorbi, or an index or pointer, a kind of die made of brass or horn, would move around on the drum head when the drum was struck. Oh, yeah, cool. So it just bounce around.
Right.
That's awesome. Future events would be predicted according to the symbols upon which the vuorbi stopped on the membrane. The patterns on the drum membrane reflect the worldview of the owner and his family, both in religious and worldly matters, such as reindeer herding, hunting, householding, and relations with their neighbors and the non-Sami community. Many drums were taken out of Sami ownership and used during the Christianization of the Sami people in the 17th and 18th centuries. Many drums were confiscated by Sami missionaries and other officials as a part of an intensified Christian mission towards the Sami. Other drums were bought by collectors. Between 70 and 80 drums are preserved. The largest collection of drums is at the Nordic Museum in Stockholm. The Northern Sami terms for the drum are, I apologize for my bad pronunciation ahead of time. Goavdis, and Miavrezgari. While the Lulu Sami and Southern Sami terms are Goabdes and Givri, respectively. Norwegian, Runbaum, Swedish, oh Jesus, Nad Truma. In English, it is also known as a rune drum. That's much easier for me.
Do you know what ruins are? Norse use ruins. They're like little clay tablets with symbols on them, and then how they turn and whatever when you pull them upside down or sideways or whatever, or some doesn't matter, but some do. And then they have like a little stories or things that relate to that ruin. If you get it, means this or that.
Right.
It's like fortune telling.
Yeah. I once had a collection of like little rune tablets.
So did I.
At one time. It's part of like the whole New Age thing, or it was when I was into it.
I just thought it was cool.
Well, they are cool. Yeah, they are very cool. Also known as Sami shamanic drum. The Northern Sami name Goavdis describes a bowl drum, while the Southern Sami name Givri describes a frame drum, corresponding to the distribution of these types of drums. Another Northern Sami name, Miavrezgari, is a cross-language compound word, Sami, Miavrez, from Miavrit, and Finnish, Moiria, dig, roar, or mess, plus Gari from the Norwegian kar, cup, or bowl. The common Norwegian name for the drum is a runbaum, is based on an earlier misunderstanding of the symbols on the drum, which interpreted them as runes. Suggesting new names in Norwegian are Shamantrom, or shaman drum, or Sametrom, or Sami drum. The original Swedish name, Trolltruma, comes from the Christian perception of Sami religion as witchcraft, or trolldom, and it is now considered derogatory. In his Fragments of Lappish Mythology, circa 1840, Lestatus used the term divination drum or spatruma. In Swedish today, the term that's commonly used is samiska trumman, the Sami drum. There are 4 categories of sources for the history of the drums. First are the drums themselves and what might be interpreted from them. Secondly, there are reports and treatises on Sami subjects from the 17th and 18th centuries, written by Swedish and Dano-Norwegian priests, missionaries, or other servants, like Johannes Schäferus. The third category are statements from Sami themselves, given to legal courts or other official representatives. The fourth are the sporadic references to drums and Sami shamanism in other sources such as Historia Norvegia in the late 12th century. The oldest mention of a Sami drum and shamanism is in the anonymous Historia Norvegia from the late 12th century. It mentions a drum with symbols of marine animals, a boat, reindeer, and snowshoes. There is also a description of a shaman healing an apparently dead woman by moving his spirit into a whale. Peter Clausen Fries describes a Noadi's spirit leaving the body in his Norwegies och omlegende. Oh my god. Sand Ferdij Beskriflus. Fuels? Yeah, something like that. 1632. The oldest description by a Sami is by Anders Hutlock of the Pite Sami in 1642 about a drum that he owned. Hutlock also made a drawing. His story was written down by the German-Swedish Burgmeister Hans P. Liebecker. Hutlock's drum represents a worldview where deities, animals, and the living and the dead are working together within a given landscape. The court protocols from this trials against Anders Poulsen in Vadzo in 1692 and against Lars Nielsen in Arjeplog in 1691 are also sources. During the 17th century, the Swedish government commissioned to work to gain more knowledge of the Sami and their culture. During the 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, rumors were spread that the Swedes won their battles with the help of Sami witchcraft. Such rumors were part of the background for the research that led to Johannes Schäferus' book Laponia, published in Latin in 1673. For Schäferus, a number of priests' correspondences, or Pras del Relationer, were written by vicars within the Sami districts of Sweden. Treatises by Samuel Reen, Olos Gran, Johannes Tornios, and Nikolai Lundius were the sources used by Schäferus. In Norway, the main sources are writings from the missions of Thomas von Westen and his colleagues from 1715 until 1735. Authors were Hans Skanke, Jens Kildal, Isaac Olsen, and Johann Randolph. And that's the Neyroy manuscript. These books were in part instructions for the missionaries and their co-workers and part documentation intended for the government in Copenhagen. Late books within this tradition are Per Hogstrom's Jesus Christ. Best.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's something. It's a thing.
It's in the blog.
Read the blog. It was written in 1747 though, in Sweden, and Knuds Lim's book also, which was written in 1767 in Denmark or Norway. Notable is especially Lestidius's Fragments of Lappish Mythology, 1839 to 1845, which both discusses earlier treatises with a critical approach and builds upon Lestidius's own experiences. The drums are always oval. The exact shape of the oval would vary with the kind of wood used. Drums, which still exist, are four different types and can be divided into two main groups: bowl drums and frame drums. In bowl drums, the wood consists of a burl shaped into a bowl. The burl usually comes from pine, but sometimes from spruce. The membrane is attached to the wood with a sinew. Frame drums are shaped by wet or heat bending. The wood is usually pine, and the membrane is sewn into holes in the frame with sinew. Then there's ring drums, are made from a naturally grown piece of pine wood, and there's only one known drum of this type. And then there's angular cut frame drums that are made from one piece of wood cut from a tree to bend the wood into an oval. Angular cuts are made in the bottom and the side of the frame. Only 2 such drums are preserved, both from Kemi-Sami districts in Finland. The partly preserved drum from Bjorsvik in Nordland is also an angular cut frame drum. In his major work on Sami drums, Die Lappische Zaubertrommel, Ernst Manker lists 41 frame drums, 1 ring drum, 2 angular cut frame drums, and 27 bowl drums. Given these numbers, many tend to divide the drums into 2 main groups: bowl drums and frame drums, seeing the others as variations. Judged by these remaining drums and their known provenance, frame drums seem to be more common in the southern Sami areas, and bowl drums seem to be more common in the northern Sami areas. The bowl drum is sometimes regarded as a local adjustment of the basic drum type, this being the frame drum. The frame drum is more reminiscent of other ceremonial drums used by the indigenous peoples of Siberia. The membrane is made of untanned reindeer hide. Lars Olsen, who described his uncle's drum, the Bindle drum, in 1885, said that the hide was usually taken from the neck of a reindeer calf because of its thickness. The symbols were painted with a paste made from an alder bark. The motifs on a drum reflect the worldview of the owner and his family, both in terms of religious beliefs and in their modes of subsistence. A world is depicted via images of reindeer, both domesticated and wild, and of carnivorous predators that pose a threat to the herd. The modes of subsistence are presented by scenes of wild game hunting, boats with fishing nets, and reindeer herding. Additional imagery on the drum consists of mountains, lakes, people, deities, as well as the campsite with tents and storage houses. Symbols of foreign civilizations, such as churches and houses, represent the threats from the surrounding and expanding non-Sami community. Each owner chose his set of symbols. There are no 2 drums with identical sets of symbols. And the drum mentioned in the medieval Latin tome Historia Norvegia, with motifs such as whales, reindeers, skis, and a boat, would have belonged to a coastal Sami. The Luel Sami drum reflects an owner who found his mode of subsistence chiefly through hunting rather than herding. A typology based on the structure of the patterns can be divided into 3 main categories. Southern Sami, characterized by the rhombus-shaped sun across the line, cross in the center. By the rhombus-shaped sun cross in the center. The Central Sami, where the membrane is divided in 2 by a horizontal line, often with a solar symbol in the lower section. And the Northern Sami, where the membrane is divided by horizontal lines into 3 or 5 separate levels, representing different worlds: the heavens, the earth, the world of the living, and an underworld. In Manker's overview of 71 known drums, there are 42 Southern Sami drums, 22 Central Sami drums, and 7 Northern Sami drums. The Bindle drum is a typical Southern Sami drum with the sun center in its center. Its last owner also explained that the symbols on the membrane were organized according to the 4 cardinal directions around the sun. South is described as the summer side, or the direction of life, and contains symbols of the Sami's life in the fells during summer. The Goadi, the storehouse, or Najala, the herd of reindeer, and their pastures. North is described as the side of death and contains symbols of sickness, death, and wickedness. Gjellstrom and Rediving have summarized the symbols of the drums in the following categories: nature, reindeer, bears, elk, or other mammals, wolf, beaver, small fur animals. Also birds, fish, hunting, fishing, reindeer herding, the campsite with Goati, Njala, and other storehouses, the non-Sami village, often represented by the church, people traveling, skiing reindeer with polk, boats, and deities with their worlds.
Right. So the one thing you saw, though, is that some people get the impression that because there's crosses on there, that it's relating to the person who has made the drum as being Christian. But as you've read there, that's a misunderstanding. That whether or not the person is, I don't know. But that picture being there could just be there as the outside world that's the threat.
Right, right.
So
yeah, it might just say like,
you're thinking, oh, look, they're Christian. No, actually, they're saying these fuckers are a problem.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's interesting about
yeah,
the
it is interesting.
Helps you interpret them a little better, that just because they have something that looks religious to even Christian, that doesn't mean they're pro-Christian.
Yeah, it might just be a drawing of like, those are those people there.
Yeah, there's exactly. So
sometimes even the use of the drum itself is depicted. The reindeer herding is mainly depicted with a circular symbol for the reindeer corral that was used to gather, mark, and milk the flock. This symbol is found on 75% of the southern Sami drums, but not on any northern or eastern drums. The symbol for the corral is always placed in the lower half of the drum. Reindeer are represented as singular line figures, as fully modeled figures, or by their antlers. The campsite is usually shown as a triangle symbolizing the tent or goati. The Sami storehouse, Njala, is depicted on many drums from different areas. The Njala is a small hut in a bare cache style, built on top of a cut tree. It is usually depicted with its ladder in front. Sami deities are shown on several drum membranes. These are the high god Radi, the demiurge and sustainer Varaldi Olmai, the thunder and fertility god Horagalis, the weather god Biag Olmai, the hunting god Laibolmai, and the sun god Biaivi, the mother goddess Madaraka Saraka or Juak Saka, Og Uksaka, the riding Ruto spirit who brought sickness and death, and Jabmeka, the empress of the underworld. Some subjects from the non-Sami world also appear on several drums. These are interpreted as attempts to understand and master the new influences interacting with the Sami society. Churches, houses, and horses appear on several drums, and drums from Torn and Kemi districts show both the city, the church, and the Lap commissary. Interpretation of the drum's symbols might be difficult, and different explanations have been proposed for several of the symbols. It has often been assumed that the Sami deliberately gave misleading explanations when they were presenting their drums to missionaries and other Christian audiences in order to downplay the pagan elements and emphasize the Christian impact on Sami culture. However, it has also been proposed that some of the symbols have been over-interpreted as religious motifs when they actually represent matters of everyday life. Hakan Rydving evaluated the drum symbols from a perspective of a source of criticism and divides them into four categories. Excuse me. Preserved drums that were explained by their owners. These are only two such drums, Anders Paulsson's drum and Friavan Jakt Givri.
Right, but the Paulsson one was on a witch trial, so
right.
who knows if he told them the actual truth about what it means? I'm just making a comment. I mean, on your witch trial for your being burned alive.
Yeah, you're like,
Would
no,
you
I'm a
really-
Christian. Look at this.
Right. Would you really be as completely accurate of your feelings towards the Christian church?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Also, preserved drums that were explained by other people, contemporary to the owners. These are 5 such drums, 4 Southern Sami and 1 Umi Sami. There are lost drums that were explained by contemporaries, either the owner or other people, and there are 4 of those. And then preserved drums without a contemporary explanation, and these make up the majority of the 70 known drums.
Yeah, you kill a culture, people don't know where the culture is.
That's right. Rydving and Kjelstrom have demonstrated that both Olav Grand's drum, Fra Lixele, and the Frian Jacques de Givry have been spiritualized through Manker's interpretations. When the explanations are compared, it appears as if Gran relates the symbols to household life and modes of subsistence, where Manker sees deities and spirits. This underlines the problems of interpretation. Symbols that Gran explains as snowy weather, a ship, rain, and squirrel barrels in the trees, or squirrels in the trees, are interpreted by Manker as the wind god, Bieglomai, a boat sacrifice, a weather god, and, among other suggestions, a forest spirit.
But the whole point is, what if it's both true? What if they are both a squirrel and also that represents? Because once again, if you have a religious belief where even rocks have spirits, I don't think it's a big stretch to go an animal also has a spirit. I mean,
yeah, it's not unheard of that a squirrel would represent a forest spirit.
Yeah.
I'm
just so anyway,
it just makes sense.
Sometimes the things that people quibble over, I'm like, seriously?
Yeah.
It's like I told you about that thing of Chalahoyuk and those balls. When you see the sling and you think about throwing it with the sling,
right? They're
and
pretty
trying
heavy
to do
duty
it
balls.
soft enough to just stun people. That's some level of quality, you know.
That's like skull crashing, like stone size. Like,
anyways,
yeah.
But some things to me, I'm like, really? You looked at that and that's what you thought?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Very strange. At the Friav Nat Janki Givri, there is a symbol explained by the owner as a Sami riding in his pulk behind his reindeer. While Manker suggests that this might be an ordinary sleigh ride, but we might as well assume that this is the Noadi, the drum owner, going on an important errand into the spiritual world. On the other hand, one might suggest that the owner of the God damn it. Friav and Janki Givri, Bendik Anderson, is de-emphasizing the spiritual content of the drum when the symbols usually recognized as the 3 mother goddesses are explained away by him as men guarding the reindeer. The primary tools...
Hold on, that's a gigantic stretch.
Right.
It goes from goddesses to men guarding reindeer.
Yeah, and it's like, so Anderson, the person who owned the drum, said, these are men guarding reindeer.
Oh.
And this guy, what's his name? Manker, is like, nope, that's actually the goddesses.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, really.
So I don't know.
Who's Cory going to listen to?
I don't know why he thinks that he gets to decide.
Well, see, but isn't that the colonizers' script?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right. What did Trump say when they asked him if he did sexual offense? Rape? They said, and he said similar type of thinking, right?
Mm.
It's been happening for 1 million years.
Right.
Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's not. Like, it literally is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Dude, this is like the simple test.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Sexual assault, not a good thing. Oh, dude, that shouldn't even involve you having to think about it.
No,
unless you're a piece
exactly.
of shit scumbag.
Yeah.
I mean, once again, this is one of those not hard.
You failed this test. This was an easy one, and you failed it.
Yeah, this was a low ball.
Yeah.
I generally say to people that when they say about universal ethics and then there's no truths, and I go, there's no such thing as just rape, and they always go, oh no, yes there is, and I'm like, yeah, see, that's the problem
there's
right
not.
there.
No,
right
there's
the problem. So you get my point. Is that it is, that's why, like you said, it sounds like the same script. Well, yeah, because Conrad's just like, as you know, pick any state. People, and I feel on the left sometimes, we're going to, by the way, after we talk to the female archaeologist, we are then going to talk about colonization by Russia. That's going to be our video. And then the next video after that, we're going to do your and my native tribes that live where we live.
Cool.
This one person started telling me that I needed to learn about something else. And I was like, did you literally not get that we think it's important that you understand where we live?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not saying we shouldn't understand other stuff, but we should focus on this, right? I mean,
we should also,
simple. Once again, don't fail this test.
Yeah. This is an easy test. You shouldn't fail this one.
It's an easy one again. You should know. Let me just say it to everybody real quick. I don't think it's personally limited to me and Cory need to do this. I call on everyone who says they're a good person, period, to learn about the native tribes where you live on their land. I don't know. That is the fucking least you could do.
It does seem like a pretty low bar.
Right? Is that not a fucking dude? You should at least know that. I'm not saying you have to be educated of all colonialism. It would be good if you were.
Yeah.
But it also, as Cory said, is a similar theme that the similar shit happened, and it's similarly gross and disgusting and should be shameful.
I'm sure.
Not even hard for me. Easy.
Yeah, that's right. All right. The primary tools used when working with the drum are mainly the drum hammer and one or two vorbi for each drum. The drums also had different kinds of chords as well as bare nails. The drum hammer in northern Sami, a balin, was usually made of horn and was a T or Y shaped, with two symmetric heads and with geometric decorations. I can't speak today. Some hammers have tails made of leather straps or have leather or tin wires wrapped around the shaft. Manker, in 1938, knew and described 38 drum hammers. The drum hammer was used for both trance drumming and together with the vorbi for divination. The vorbi, or index or pointer, the northern Sami vorbi, baja, or arpa, and in southern Sami vijiki.
Let me pause for a second. So this little hammer thing they're using, it also you can see where that could go to the Thor, right? That boom, boom. With
right.
I mean, it's like Horgalis, their, in a sense, patron lightning deity, has a hammer, and everyone goes, oh, they must have stole it from, the Indo-Europeans. Well, they have literally a drum and a hammer making a dong, like thunder or whatever. They literally have that. So saying that their deity has a hammer, I would almost think came first.
Right.
Not the other way around.
Yeah. Doesn't seem that hard that far of a stretch.
Think of it this way. Indo-European, right, is where they think it comes from because of the lightning god, like Thor. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but so is Zeus, a lightning god and Indo-European god who doesn't have a freaking hammer.
Right.
So the fact that there's a hammer involved, I'm going to just say guess, right, because I don't know a percentage, but I certainly would feel more strongly about that guess being a Sami influence than the
Right.
other way around. Sami
Right.
influenced Nordic, not Nordic influenced Sami. I'm not saying that. Well, I'm not saying that that didn't happen. I'm just saying not in this instance.
Right.
I don't
Right.
think. That's all I'm saying. Because there are, and here's another thing too. There's a thing that starts happening about 20,000 years ago, which is these, they call them batons, being found that seem to be like the carved holes in them, so actually make them weaker or
Okay.
lighter, and thus not as good as a weapon. So you think like they're making a weapon, and then they're ruining the weapon with a bunch of holes to make it like not effective.
Right.
And I think it's because it's like that drum thing for the Sami. That's the continuation, in a sense, of that kind of thing that was already happening. Because that's why I think the Magdalenian were shamans or practiced some version of shamanism. And then Magdalenian are the oldest, or Western hunter-gatherers are the oldest with I DNA, in a sense, going into Finno-Scandinavia, whatever. So, you know, up there are the Sapmi lands where the Sami are. So to me, even, and they, like I told you, probably went more than one, you know, thing, because there's I, and then there's I1 goes in again.
Right.
And V has a little bit different, you know, and then U5 isn't exactly. So everything is from the same culture in a sense, but it didn't, it wasn't like just one wave or one family or one, you know, one DNA even. So,
Okay.
yeah, because you know things aren't always clean and neat, and yeah, it's still a tribe because they get
Right.
to decide that they're part of the tribe.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, the Vorbi was used for divination, was made of brass, horn, or bone, and was, or sometimes wood. The cords are leather straps nailed or tied to the frame or to the bottom of the drum. They had pieces of bone or metal tied to them. The owner of the Freevan, Jackie Givry, Bendix Anderson, Froyingsvel, explained to Thomas von Weston in 1723 that the leather straps and their decorations of tin, bone, and brass were offers of gratitude to the drum, given by the owners as a response to good luck gained by the messages the shaman received when using it. The frame of the Free Van Jack Givry also had 11 tin nails in it in a cross shape. Bendix explained them as an indicator of the number of bears killed thanks to instructions given by the drum. Manker found similar bear nails in 13 drums. Other drums had a baculum from a bear or a fox among the cords. Ernst Manker summarized the use of the drum regarding both trance and divination. Before, the membrane was tightened by holding the drum close to the fire, and the user stood on his knees or sat with his legs crossed, holding the drum with his left hand. The Vorbi was placed on the membrane either in a fixed starting place or one chosen at random. The hammer was held in the right hand. The membrane was struck with either one of the hammerheads or on the flat side of the hammer. The drumming started at a slow pace and grew wilder. If the drummer fell into a trance, his drum was placed upon him with the painted membrane facing downwards. The route of the Vorbi across the membrane and its places where it stopped were interpreted as significant. Samuel Reen, who was a priest in Kvikjok, 1664 to 1671, was one of the first to write about Sami religion. His impression was that many Sami, but not all, used the drum for divination. Reen mentioned 4 kinds of things the drum could give. One was knowledge about what was happening somewhere else. Another was knowledge about luck, misfortune, health, and illness. And then there was curing diseases. And then finally, advice on which deity one should sacrifice to. Of these 4 things mentioned by Reen, other sources state that the first of them was only performed by the Nuadi. Based on the sources, one might get the impression that the use of the drum was gradually democratized, so that there in some regions there was a drum in each household and that the father of the household could use it to seek advice. Yet the original use of the drum, including trance work, seems to have remained in a specialty of the shaman. Sources seem to agree that in southern Sami districts in the 18th century, each household had its own drum. These were mostly used for divination. The types and configurations of the motifs on the southern Sami drums suggested that it was indeed used for divination. On the other hand, the configurations of the northern Sami drum motifs, with their hierarchical structures of the worlds represent a mythological universe in which it was the Nuadi's privilege to wander. The drum was usually carried along on nomadic wanderings. There are also reports of drums being hidden close to regular campsites, inside the lavu and the goari. The drum was always placed in the boasu, the space behind the fireplace that was considered the holy room of the goari. Several contemporary sources describe a dual view of the drums. They were seen as both as occult devices and as divination tools for practical purposes. Drums were inherited. Not all of those who owned drums in the 18th century described themselves as active users of their drum. At least that was what they insisted when the drums were confiscated.
Right, but also there's times where people were worried about getting killed, so...
Yeah, so maybe they lied.
Yeah.
There is no known evidence of the drum or the Nuadi having had any role in the childbirth or funeral rituals. Some sources suggest that the drum was manufactured with the aid of secret rituals. However, Manker made a photo documentary describing the drum making process. The selection of the motifs for the membrane or the philosophy behind it are not described in any sources. It is known that the dedication of a new drum featured rituals that involved the whole household. The Nuadi used the drum to induce a state of trance. He hit the drum with an intense rhythm until he went into a trance or sleep-like state. While in this state, his free spirit could travel into the spirit worlds or to other places into the material world. The episode mentioned in Historia Norvegia tells about a Nuadi who traveled to the spirit world and fought against enemy spirits in order to heal the sick. The writings of Peter Clausen Fries, 1545 to 1614, described a Sami in Bergen who could supposedly travel in the material world while he was in a trance. A Sami named Jacob made his spirit journey to Germany to learn about the health of a German merchant's family. Both Nikolai Lundius and Isaac Olsen and Johns Kildall described Nuadis traveling to the spirit worlds where they negotiated with death deities, especially Jabmeka, the queen of the realm of the dead, regarding people's health and lives. This journey involved risks to the Nuadi's own life and health. In the writings of both Samuel Reen and Isaac Olsen, the drum is mentioned as part of the preparations for a bear hunt. Reen says that the Nuadi could give her information about hunting fortune, while Olsen suggests that the Nuadi was able to manipulate the bear to move into the hunter's range. The Nuadi, or the drum's owner, was a member of the group of hunters following the heels of the spear bearer. The Nuadi also sat at a prominent place during the feast after the hunting. In fragments of Lappish mythology, 1840 to 1845, Lars Levi Lestadius writes that the Sami used his drum as an oracle and consulted it when some important matter was at hand, just like any other kind of fortune-telling with cards or dowsing. One should not consider every drum owner a magician. A common practice was to let the vuarbi move across the membrane, visiting the different symbols. The Nuadi would interpret the will of the gods by the route taken from the vuarbi. Such practices are described in conjunction with the bindle drum, the free van Jack Givri, and the Veldeford drum. Whether women were allowed to use each drum has been debated, but no consensus has yet been reached. On one hand, some sources say that women were not even allowed to touch the drum, and during herd migration, women should not follow another route than the sleigh that carried the drum. On the other, the whole family was involved in the initiation of the drum. Also, the participation of yoiking women was of importance for a successful spirit journey. May Lisbeth
Just
Meerhog,
showing there's different cultural understandings of the gender in Sami.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, nothing is a monolith.
Right. May Lisbeth Meerhog has reinterpreted the sources from the 17th and 18th century and suggests that there is evidence of female Nawadi, including spirit-traveling female Nawadi, in contrast to the claim that only men could be Nawadi and use the drum. There are examples of Sami women who did use the drum. Kirsten Clemet's daughter, 1714. Rijko Maha of Arvidsjaur, 1661 to 1757, and Anna Greta Massdaughter of Vapston, known as Silbo Gamel or Gamel Silba, 1794 to 1870, are examples of women noted to have used the drum. Drums after Christianization. In the 17th and 18th centuries, several raids were made to confiscate drums both in Sweden and in Denmark, Norway. During the Christianization of the Sami people, Thomas von Westen and his colleagues considered the drums to be the Bible of the Sami and wanted to eradicate what they saw as idolatry by destroying or removing the drums. Any uncontrolled idol worshipping Sami were considered a threat to the government. The increased missionary efforts towards the Sami in the early 18th century might be explained as a consequence of the government's desire to control the citizens under the era of absolute monarchy in Denmark, Norway, and also as a consequence of the increased emphasis on the individual Christian faith in Pietism, popular at the time. In Azale, Sweden, 2 drums were collected in 1686, 8 drums in 1689, and 26 drums in 1725, mainly of the southern Sami types. Thomas von Westen collected about 100 drums from the southern Sami district. 8 of them were collected at Snasa in 1723. 70 of von Westen's drums were lost in the Copenhagen fire of 1728. Von Westen found few drums during his journeys in the northern Sami districts between 1715 and 1730. This might be explained by the advanced Christianization of the Sami of the north, and in that drums had already been destroyed. It might also be explained by the differences in the ways the drums were used in the northern and southern Sami cultures, respectively. While the drum was a common household item in southern Sami culture, it might have been a rare object reserved for the few educated Nawadi in northern Sami culture. Right.
Well, this definitely has changed your perspective a little bit, right? Hearing all this stuff, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Understanding these drums and everything, and then understanding, who these people are.
Yeah, and it's funny though, like, because a lot of the stuff that seems to be that is written about seems to be coming from like colonizers or like people who have a particular perspective on them. So,
oh yeah. Well, and that's why I did try to get an archaeologist to go talk to, who has family, archaeologist from Sweden who has family that are Sami.
Right.
So he was gonna but he hasn't got the information yet. So, but yeah, I wanted to hear what from what's their opinion.
For sure, yeah. Because it's it might be slightly different.
it might be.
Okay, where are we now? Right here. Probably the best known is the Lin drum, or Linné drum, a drum that was given to Carl Linnaeus during his visits to northern Sweden. He later gave it to a museum in France, and it was later brought back to the Swedish National Museum. 3 Sami drums can be found in the collections of the British Museum, including one bequeathed by Sir Hans Sloane, founder of the museum. Over 30 drums are held at the Nordiska Museet, Stockholm, with others held in Rome, Berlin, Leipzig, and Hamburg. Cambridge University's Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology, the Pitt Rivers Museum of Oxford, and London's Horniman Museum all hold examples of Sami drums.
And to me, what they should hold is replicas.
Yeah.
And give the fucking drums back. It's what they fucking should do to me. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
Especially when they were fucking taken, from, confiscated in colonization. It's like, fuck, give me a break.
Yeah, that's right. You stole these.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You literally need to give them the fuck back.
Yeah, that's right.
So and I don't mind them having replicas. What the fuck? Just say it's a replica or whatever,
Yeah.
You can draw.
That's right. There's nothing wrong with a replica. You didn't steal that from anybody.
Yeah.
You're just
Replica.
trying.
Especially if you're doing it, especially if you're showing it to honor the culture and stuff.
Yep.
In
that's
the
right.
museum, great.
Yeah.
Use
Then it's
replica.
educational and
Yeah.
Exactly.
What the fuck? I mean, but to have to keep their stolen items from people that were burned alive and shit, that's just sickening and gross, man.
Yeah. It's trash. Yeah.
More of this not hard stuff. I mean, I always feel like people are like, oh, morality is so hard. I'm like,
it's not actually. Like a lot of things are pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I don't know why it's so hard for you.
Yeah, that's right. Anders Poulsen's drum became part of the Danish royal collection after his trial and death. It eventually entered the collections of the National Museum of Denmark and was on loan to the Sami Museum in Karasjok, northern Norway, from 1979. Following a 40-year struggle, it was officially returned to the Sami people in 2022, according to Jelena Porsanger, director of the museum.
Isn't it crazy that it takes that long for people to figure out what's ethically correct?
Yeah, that's
right.
right.
I said it's freaking and they wonder why I'm like so unhappy with and don't want to call our society civilized. I don't know. Look at how long it takes you to fucking just do the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. Very strange. Yeah. Noadi. A Noadi, or Northern Sami, Noadi, or Lulu Sami, Noaji. Southern Sami is a Najeti. Skolt Sami is Nojd. Tur Sami is Neojd. Kilden Sami is a Nujd or Nuojd. Pete Sami is a Najdi. And this is a Sami of the Sami people, or in the Nordic countries, playing a role in Sami religious practices. Most Noadi practices died out during the 17th century, most likely because they resisted Christianization of the Sami people and the king's authority. Their actions were referred to in courts as magic or sorcery. Several Sami shamanistic beliefs and practices are similar to those of some Siberian cultures. Noadis, often referred to as the Sami shamans, are the traditional healers and protectors of the Sami people. Noadis are considered to have the role of mediator between humans and spirits. To undertake this mediation, the Noadi are believed to be able to communicate with the spirit world and to ask what sacrifice needed to be made by a person so that he might try to return to the good health and be successful in the hunt for food. Sacrifices designed by the Noadi are understood to reestablish a kind of balance between the mortal and immortal worlds. Using a traditional drum, which is the most important symbol and tool of the Sami Noadi, they invoke assistance from the benevolent spirits and conducted out-of-body travel via the free soul with the help of other Sida members. The Sami distinguished between the free soul versus the more mundane body soul. The body soul is unable to traverse the divide separating the spiritual netherworld and the more mundane corporeal real world. A Nuadi can engage in any kind of affair that demands wisdom. It is said they take payments for their services. The activities include healing people, helping children, making decisions, and protecting reindeer, which represents the most important source of food and are also used as tribute payment. The sources from which we learn about Nuadi are court protocols, tales, excavated tools such as belts, and missionary reports. The Nuadi were punished and in some cases sentenced to death for their sorcery. That they were punished should perhaps rather be interpreted as an attempt to obliterate opposition to the crown. Prior to 1858, when the Conventicle Act was abolished, there was no freedom of religion, as the Lutheran Swedish Church was the only allowed religion for Swedish citizens. Swedish priests supported conviction of Nuadis for sorcery in 1693. Lars Nilsson was executed for that charge. It has traditionally often been claimed that only men could become Nuadi and use the drum, but both Religio Maja of Arvidsjaur from 1661 to 1757, as well as Anna Greta Masdottir of Vabsten, who was known as Silbo Gamel or Gamel Silba, were both noted to have done so. In the Sami shamanistic form of worship, drumming is of singular importance. Some of yoiks are sung on shamanistic rites. This memory is conserved also in a folklore text, a shaman story. Recently, yoiks have been sung in two different styles, one of which is sung only by young people. The other yoik may be identified with the mumbling yoik, resembling chants or magic spells. Several surprising characteristics of yoiks can be explained by comparing the music ideals as observed in yoiks and contrasted to music ideals of other cultures. In some instances, yoiks mimic natural sounds. This can be contrasted to other goals, namely overtone singing and bel canto, both of which exploit human speech organs to achieve superhuman sounds. Overtone singing and the imitation of sounds in shamanism are presented in many other cultures as well. Sound imitation may serve other purposes such as games and other entertainment, as well as important practical purposes such as luring animals during hunts. A Nuadi is a mediator between the human world and Savo, the underworld, on behalf of the community, usually using a Sami drum and a domestic flute called a fadno in ceremonies.
And a lot of people don't talk enough about how shamanism is connected to flutes, but there's flutes in Europe with shamanism, maybe even before shamanism, and certainly even it goes over to China, they have shamanism and they have flutes, even 9,000 years ago. So I mean, and in the Americas and all as well, you know. Right. But I'm just saying that everyone always focuses on the drum. Once again, if it doesn't have a drum and has a flute, it could still be connected to the same, you know, type of thing of talking to the ancestors, or in a sense mimicking sounds, or, you know, actually doing some sort of a, you know, like a spiritual prayer or something by singing, or be not singing the flute. I mean, just like the drum.
Yeah, you hear a lot about the drum. You don't hear that much about the flute.
Right, and it definitely is a factor for a lot of shamanism. So, I mean,
interesting.
But also, I just think that if it does or it doesn't, I feel like that because, in other words, say there's like 20 things in shamanism, and if this one group has 15, this other group's 18, are we really going to say which one's not shamanism?
Right. Yeah. How many characteristics of shamanism does it take to be a shaman?
Yeah. So, but I'm just saying, you get my point.
Yeah.
But
sure.
I see part of a culture, so I don't get so locked into the religion. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Like some people, like, you know, or even some people and have a specific of words, and you know. So,
yep.
My opinion is, yeah. I think that
it's fine.
What I meant is this. I think it's too dogmatic to like tell other people which exactly religion they are,
right?
Or to not see religions connected just because they're using different names. I mean, even when you read the Noedi, they're not spelled or the exact same name for all the Sami tribes, and we know they're connected.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
So,
yeah, exactly.
And the drums aren't the same, and the words aren't the same, but aren't they all the same? You get my point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, like we're calling it the Noadi or Noedi or however.
Right, but they don't all call it that.
But yeah, different groups of Sami people call it different things.
See, now you're getting what I'm saying, but yet we don't call them not Sami.
Right.
You get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So,
but
sure. Once again, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, even if they're wrong. No.
Yeah, well, that's true though. People are allowed to be wrong.
Well, at least I feel justified, or I've done a good job explaining how I think and why I feel it's reasonable. And so, if someone disagrees, well, they should have a right to disagree. But I've said why I feel mine is reasonable, or I'm trying to, build it off of that.
Yep.
You got some more to read, but I think we should wrap it up.
Okay.
There's definitely more to read, but
I got about 8 pages left.
Yeah,
so
I don't want you to read it. I don't want you to read 8 pages. Okay. That's fine. Well, because it was the whole point, and the blog's always there. So there's if people want to learn more, there's just tons more. And I feel like we really achieved, though, my goal. My goal was to show, in a sense, shamanism to me is a phenomenon. It's all over the place. I don't think it.
Right.
These people have it, but so did the people in the Paleolithic Europe, and so does China, and so does Africa, and the Native Americans, and So for me, I'm just saying, and also to grasp that this is a big thing. There is a lot of shamanism, and even if you only agreed that it's only in the upper north of everywhere, the Arctic and stuff, that's still a lot of people.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know what I'm saying? A lot of people in a lot of land, and we should be, respecting either way. I'm just saying, and like I said, even if that's the only place someone thinks there's shamanism, that's still a lot of shamanism.
Yeah.
But I know it's more too, because even when they did that test of indigenous people around the world, they came out that 79% were practice shamanism, or something close to it.
Something similar.
So it's a lot. So when people think it's not a big deal, it is a lot, and so that's why.
Yeah. The majority of the world, actually.
Yeah, it's quite a lot, actually.
Yeah.
And you should probably know something about it. Anyway, so, and I also thought it was important too, because it calls back to the colonization. And so I thought that's so important. And the activism, I thought, great, man, these people do activism, and they're fighting for other indigenous tribes. I'm starting to like these people.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
This is stuff I can agree with.
Yeah, I think in general, I'm a pretty big fan of the Sami people.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's something that you may not have felt as closely connected if you hadn't heard what their thing is.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, but I feel like, once again, colonization makes us think that the only thing that matters is a Christian white person, which, like I said, becomes your ethnic culture, which doesn't mean that's a good thing, though.
Right.
So, because going back to your statement before, you feel like Canadians or American white people don't have a culture. They do, but it's not a good one, and it's not. Well,
fair. That's fair. No, that's.
I'm just making a comment. I mean, just like people say Western, you mean, in a sense, a certain type of thinking. Once again, why?
You mean an attempt at supremacy? That's what you mean.
Yeah, white supremacy and Christian nationalism. That's how.
Yeah.
So
great.
and statism, taking over the world. There was a time when there wasn't states all over the world.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. And so I'm just saying that I wanted to show that this is all connected. And then climate change. I thought, man, this is like the greatest thing because it actually a lot of stuff I care about.
For sure. For sure.
So anyways, like I said, that's why I wouldn't mind reading more, but I don't want to make the video too long. And I really feel that we did it justice. I don't think someone could watch this and not have a new respect for the Sami.
And potentially even an interest in learning more because
yeah.
I find that I haven't read the blog yet. I'll probably go finish reading the blog at some point. So maybe check out some of the links in it just so that I know what's going on. Because it's another indigenous group that it's good to know about.
I totally agree. And so that's what I want to, and generally, like I said, get people to grasp shamanism, or at least shamanism as I feel I understand it. Because I'm not claiming that I'm not trying to, but I see so many people saying this is not, it only starts here and all this. And I'm just like,
right.
I got to at least say my opinion. It starts, 30 to 35,000 years ago in Siberia. One branch immediately shoots into Europe. One branch shoots all the way down in North Africa.
Right.
Then another branch then goes to Siberia. Finally, in a sense, back in a sense to Siberia, and even though that's where it started, and then from there it goes the Lake Balka, and then from there it goes to the Americas, it goes back to the Middle East, it goes to Europe, it goes to the northern Japan, it goes to the Sami, it goes everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, but grasping that, and then that's, if you say that's shamanism, well then almost everybody's connected because some people feel like I said that Siberia is they call it the home of shamanism. Like I said, it's kind of complicated to my thinking because, like I told you, it starts there, but it starts not in Lake Balka, which is eastern or central Siberia, but it starts to me at the Russian border, in a sense, or whatever. It's that part of Siberia, this part of Siberia where it's almost in Russia. That's why it ends up in Europe, in a sense, and goes straight down, to Africa.
Okay.
But so I'm just saying, and then from Europe, then those ideas shoot over to me to back into Siberia, and now they're more evolved in Siberia. Then some branch goes to the Americas, in a sense, but other branches go to the Middle East, and they start having burying shamans 12,000. You start to see in Africa buries them, in a sense, at 8,000. You start seeing all these different things, and once again, this is another version that comes from also Siberia, but the Lake Balka Siberia, in a sense. So that was a different one. So in other words, after 24,000, almost everything's coming from Lake Balka, or I should say everything. A lot of influence is coming from Lake Balka.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anything around it, both the Amur region, which is Northern Asia, and south of it, Mongolia, just everything in that like whole center, area is just a lot of stuff. They migrate all over the place. So anyways, that's as I'm saying, that's important to understand that. But anyways, like I said, it was I had a great time, and I hope that you enjoyed and learned some stuff. So
yep, I definitely did. That's awesome.
Right on. So go ahead and tell us about what you're doing. And
yes, I'm finished moving now, so I'm still setting things up 100%, but I'm going to be starting to work more on my podcast and YouTube channel again. So that's the Skeptical Leftist Podcast, because I rebranded it. Check out my website, skepticalleftist.com.
Right on. Well, I appreciate everyone for checking out the video, and I appreciate Cory for helping me and my endeavors of, using history to be part of my, call to revolution.
I'm glad we could make it work today. I'm glad the internet started. I got it figured out. So right on. I'm happy we got to do this today.
Yeah, me too. All right. Well, everyone, take care.
Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, antitheism, antireligionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheists can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudo-history, pseudo-morality, things that are found in religion.